Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of fantastic racing action in the one and only UK Sim Racing GT3 League Season 15, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing, and proudly sponsored by the Virtual Racing School, that's VRS, where you can get faster through the Virtual Racing School. But speaking of things getting faster, we roll our way into the second half of the season. Today marks round number 6 of the championship. 5 rounds have been completed and 5 rounds of absolutely fantastic and brilliant racing action have kept us absolutely gripped to our seats throughout. Whether it was the brilliant battling last time out at Misano, and particularly at the front of the field in the elite class, where we got to see Daniel Stasuk hold on to his 4th win of the season, albeit not without the pressure of Pavel Dolezal all the way through, or 30 further down the intrigue in the Pro and Am classes of the Berings family brothers looking to absolutely dominate, but more on that in a bit, or in the Am class where it's been while the battles for second there, and in the rookie class we also do have that big question of who's going to be leading going into the second half of the season, because Alistair Murray has 2 wins back to back. However, BJ Alvarez is expected to be back on the grid today and looking to go strong, and we've got a perfect setting to continue the story of the season, because we're here at the Circuit de Nevers Magny-Cours in France, a circuit more commonly associated with the French Grand Prix of the 90s and the early noughties, then to be replaced by the Circuit Paul Ricard, where it's a circuit that continues to play host to regular closed cockpit 4-wheel racing year in year out, having recently played host to the GT World Challenge Europe Championship here only about a weekend ago. But we are here today to see which of our GT3 drivers is going to come on strong and kick off the second half of the season with a bang. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you to this live broadcast from circuit side, albeit the racing itself is not live. The race had occurred as of yesterday on Sunday the 3rd of August 2025, but we're bringing it to you as if it were live this fine Monday the 4th of August 2025, and therefore we have to point out that we do not know in the commentary booth here what happens in the practice session that's currently ongoing, the qualifying session that's upcoming, or indeed the race. So therefore it's all raw and absolutely new to us here in the commentary booth, and that's how it's going to be presented to you guys and girls tuning in at home. And well, you can be tuning in right now via one or two of the official UK Sim Racing media channels. Firstly, we do have the broadcast available on YouTube at youtube.com, and we do look to it UK Sim Racing Net in terms of your search criteria, or UKSR, and you can be tuning in along the likes of Ruben Berings and Anstis Races, or Nathan Anstis there, as good evening to you fine gentlemen. And to those who tune in via YouTube right now and haven't said hi, don't be shy, feel free to say hi, we don't bite here. Alternatively, you could be tuning in via the official UK Sim Racing Twitch channel, and that's at twitch.tv/UK Sim Racing, and welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via Twitch. But regardless of where you tune in from, whether it's on YouTube or alternatively Twitch, your broadcast will be the same, and will be presented and commentated on by myself. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX1 or Britain the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, though we bring you all your racing action as it unfolds over the course of another intriguing round of racing action. But let's set the scene then, because we've talked a little bit about our host circuit, we talked a little bit about how we've come into this round, but where have we made our way around so far? Well, round number 1, it was Daytona in the US of A. Round number 2, we made our way to United Kingdom for the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. In round number 3, it was a trip to Asia for the Fuji International Speedway in Japan. Then we had our mid-season break week before returning for round number 4 back to the United States for VIR. And last time out, well, it was a tricky day in Italy at the Misano World Circuit, Marco Simoncelli, but many were able to stand strong there, as we only had 35 drivers take to the Italian circuit on the 27th of July, but what we lacked in quantity, we definitely made up for in terms of quality racing action. But now the second half of the season gets underway, and we begin it here in France at the Magny-Cours circuit. And of course, you'll notice there the asterisks next to each of the round numbers for round 6 through to 10. And where it be Magny-Cours, Jose Carlos Pache, the Brazilian Autodrome known as Interlagos, Road America in round number 8, Silverstone in round 9, or the Nürburgring Große Preisstrecke in round number 10. All 5 of these rounds, they're not just as part of the overall championship for the elite, the pro and the rookie classes, but they also form the all-new UK Sim Racing Challenge Cup, whereby any driver on the grid in any of these 5 rounds will be eligible to compete. What is the Challenge Cup? Well, quick summary is, you race as per usual. However, your points that you take from each and every one of these rounds in your class, those will go into a total points pool where all the drivers will compete against each other regardless of what class they are for championship rights in the Challenge Cup. And it gives a little bit of motivation for those who've perhaps struggled in their classes in the first 5 rounds of the season to keep in the championship all the way to the end, because they can still be taking home the Challenge Cup prize, which may not be as big as the overall championship prize, but it's still a sizable prize pool available there in a first for UK Sim Racing in hosting the mid-season Challenge Cup. So it does mean that we'll be seeing elite, pro, am and rookie drivers. They all score in their classes as per usual, but come the end of the Challenge Cup, after those 5 rounds, we'll see who scored the most points, and they will be the one who takes home the Cup trophy. But that is the scene set, and we kick off the Challenge Cup here today. And where we kick it off, well, of course, it's the Grand Prix layout of the Circuit de Nevers Magny-Cours. Located near the village of Magny-Cours and the Nevers region of what will be the combined state section of Bourgogne, Franche-Comté in France. Well, indeed, an absolutely brilliant circuit, and one that has withstood the test of time of the ages. And the only reason Formula 1 moved away from it in the noughties was because of the relatively remote location and the fact it's quite difficult to access for the paddock teams. But for those who are able to make the trip to Magny-Cours, well, it's a spectacle, albeit one of the other reasons, of course, being there's not too many grandstands the deeper you go into the circuit, with all the spectator stands focused around turns 1 through to 3 and also turns 14 through to 17. But forget the spectators and look at the spectacle on the road, and you'll see all the drivers will roar their way around this 17-corner circuit. And a big thank you to iRacing.com, not just for the simulator, but also for the brilliant track maps that come with it. Spanning the best part of 2.74 miles, this circuit will feel strangely familiar to our drivers today, as we'll be making around corner sequences which are very similar and borrowed, if you will, or modelled on other circuits around the world. Where it be Estoril at turn number 3, taken from the Brazilian circuit, in fact the Portuguese circuit there, let me get my countries right. Then we'll see our drivers make the way out to Estoril, and they'll come all the way down to turn 5, and it will be a hairpin there, named after Adelaide, the Australian circuit with its infamous hairpin, where they come back on themselves to turn 7 and 8, the fast chicane there that mirrors the Vidal chicane of the Nürburgring circuit in Germany, before they'll head into the 180-degree hairpin at turn number 9, and then absolutely blast their way out in towards the Imola chicane at turns 12 and 13, in reference to the Italian circuit, and that's where all the course references conclude. But as they roar the way on through here, it also has its own unique corners, including Grande Courbe at turns 1 and 2, the double left apex sequence, alternatively the wonderful Complex de l'IC at turns 15 through to 17, where the lap ends on the chicane effectively, and well, we can expect many of our drivers to need to nail those curbs each and every time. But a lap of this circuit will definitely bring you when we go into qualifying. But going on to our rules for today, well, this is an open setup series with fuel loads restricted to 60% for all of our races. Qualifying wise, we will see a closed qualifying format being used, with drivers having 4 flying laps available in addition to their outlap. As for the race, it will commence via a double file rolling start, as is a tradition of the GT3 league here at UK Sim Racing. There's 1 mandatory pit stop for fuel, but changing tyres is entirely optional. Each round has 1 fast repair available, and the driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 20 or more instant points. Meanwhile, all race stewarding shall be conducted post-race. And well, just to also remind you, we do have the ongoing VRS, or Virtual Racing School subscription giveaways, and a big thank you to our title sponsor for continuing to work with us here at UK Sim Racing, and each round as a result will be giving away VRS competitive subscriptions to our competitors, and this will include a 1 3-month subscription, a 2-month subscription and a 1-month subscription, and these are all in 3 separate raffle draws, and any driver who takes to the grid for the round shall be eligible to enter the raffle draw for each prize, so long as they have not won it in a previous round. And we'll be doing the draws live on air after all the racing concludes today, and indeed we'll have 3 new winners' names to add to the pool. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's head circuit side, and well, as we bring our schedule up on screen, times in British Summer Time, that's BST, or Circuit Time +1 at UTC +1, as we can see in just under 5 minutes time, we'll be making our way into our 10-minute qualifying session at 8 o'clock this evening. All the drivers out there in their lone qualifying format, and they'll try and give it their best to put themselves on pole, and it could be critical to get on pole here, because overtaking is highly possible, but it costs a lot of time, and after that we'll then be making our way to the grid for our 60-minute feature race, due to get underway at just around 8:10 this evening. But wonderful conditions here in France. A track temperature currently of 34 degrees centigrade. It's getting quite hot, but otherwise an ambient temperature of 21 degrees centigrade. It's peak summer, most definitely on the European continent, and with a little bit of cloud here, this circuit is going to warm up very nicely. But as all the drivers get themselves warmed up, well, we can see some lap times coming in from all of our competitors, and right now, well, let's give you a quick recap of how things stand. Ruben Berings is your leader in the Pro class. He has been leading the way for a sizable period of time. However, he now has a new challenger in the Pro class, because we've had 1 member of the Berings family there, but his brother Brecht, well, he was the championship leader in AM, but after Misano, it was deemed by the administrators that he needed to be promoted up a class given his absolute dominance in AM. So Brecht Berings now has moved into 2nd in the Pro Championship, and he sits at the best part of 11.6 points behind. 5 points behind there, as I get my notes mixed up, but only 5 points behind what is none other than Ruben Berings, his brother. Indeed, it's going to be a bit of a brotherly battle. However, that's not to say the Berings family are going to steal all the spotlight between the two of them, because in the fact you do have 3 drivers who will be very eager to try and close that gap, one of which is Ryan Davies, another one is Daniel Shillcock for Track 6 Racing, and you also do have his teammate, and that will be Christer Halsoy. And Halsoy, the only other driver in the Pro Class so far this season to take a win in the Pro Class. Otherwise, it has been the Ruben Berings story all the way after the adjustments for Joe Newman being promoted to the Elite Class after the opening 2 rounds. Speaking of our elites, well, there's not too many of them out of the circuit at the moment, but the one who is in the very colourful liveried Corvette Z06 GT3R, and that is Sam Derbyshire, who's currently the 4th fastest elite driver around there. But as we do see him make his way on through, well, what's the story here? Well, it may be Andrew Fairley who's topping the timing tower right now. A relative newcomer to the series in the fact he joined the grid as of round number 5 at Misano, but he has not proven to be the fastest out there so far as the NJB performance driver. Indeed, that would fall to the heels of Daniel Stasuk, who at Misano, we made it 4 wins in 4 appearances. However, he was pushed every step of the way by none other than his rival Pavel Dolezal, and there was nothing between the two of them come at the end of the session. Indeed, at the end of the race, the separation in the end was an unfortunate late drive-through penalty for Pavel Dolezal, but otherwise the Paceworks Esports Mercedes driver would have absolutely forced the Acura of Daniel Stasuk all the way to the checker flag, and was unfortunate. It was heartbreaking when it happened, but it just goes to show the limits on which our drivers drive. But that's the elite and the pro classes talked about. What about in AM? Well, the story of AM, as we see Sean Cranleigh-Swash, currently the man who makes his way on around here, and he is running 2nd place in the championship. Well, with Brecht Berings being promoted, it has shuffled things, because of course the points have been adjusted based on the removal of Brecht Berings from the AM class, and his points have been adjusted to go into the pro class. And what has actually happened is we now have a 3-way fight at the top. Sean Cranleigh-Swash is one of the 3 belligerents. The leader is Darren Sharples. He's currently parked in the pit lane. In fact, you can see him there in the old duty cars McLaren 720S Evo, but he only leads by 5 points over Sean Cranleigh-Swash and Niel Kenyon. And Niel Kenyon in the Mercedes AMG, well, he's currently out the car waiting to go, but it's very close between the trio, and we look forward to seeing who's going to be leading after today. And as for the rookie class, well, we only had 4 drivers make it to the grid last time out at Misano. Indeed, many of our rookies decided not to make the trip to Italy, but those that did, well, Alistair Murray was the man to beat, and he is currently the man to beat here in the championship and also in the lap times of this practice session. But we've got to see some brilliant battling out there, and indeed right now Alistair Murray may be leading and that open up a 25-point lead, but remember that BJ Alvarez has committed effectively 2 0 scores so far this season, and there are 2 drop scores available to our drivers. So the Porsche driver there of Alvarez, you can see parked up in the very colourful yellow and pink Porsche, well, he's going to be back on form today and looking to go for gold, even though he set no practice time here in this practice warm-up session. But also keep in mind, you have got the likes of Alex Brown and Jordan Jones and Richard Jones. Well, the battle of the Joneses in particular, not related by blood, but they are related by surname, and therefore they'll be looking to do a battle to prove who is the best of the Joneses once again. But that's the story coming into this round then, and without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to head into qualifying. For 10 minutes of qualifying, who's going to put it on pole? We'll be right back very shortly to find out. And it is go, go, go for qualifying as 10 minutes starts to tick away, and with it, all the drivers will need to be quickly underway, because if they don't, they may find themselves missing a lap at the very end. But as we do see James Powelson, one of many of our drivers, making the way on out, and while the Paceworks Esports drivers there, tripping his way in towards Estrel Bend, and a very interesting pit lane exit there. She come right on the outside of the long sweeping right-hander, and what it does mean that you run straight onto what is the optimum line through the corner. If a driver goes a bit deep initially, they can cut back and get a better lunge out of the corner, and then down onto the golf stretch they'll go. Well, how important is qualifying going to be? We are going to be essentially thinking about that, as we do say hello there to Christer Halsoy in the YouTube chat, who says, bring Formula 1 back here, please. And indeed, I must admit, I do miss the days of seeing Formula 1 at Magny-Cours, and I believe it was the first ever instance, if my memory serves me correctly, of a driver becoming the dominant force at Magny-Cours, with Michael Schumacher becoming the first driver to ever win 8 Grand Prix at a single circuit. And then subsequently it'll be Lewis Hamilton who went on to replicate that at Silverstone, if my memory serves me correctly, although I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong there, but I believe Michael Schumacher was the first to become an 8-time winner at a given circuit in his Formula 1 career, and Magny-Cours being the baseline of success for the German driver. Of course, 7-time champion matched by Lewis Hamilton, and well, it looks as though Michael Schumacher sadly no longer able to race given his health, and well, meanwhile from one fortunes of a Ferrari driver to another one, Lewis Hamilton not having the best of form. However, Formula 1 aside and GT3s, well, how important is qualifying? It's relatively important because, as we said earlier, you can go too wide around here. The Magny-Cours circuit does offer a lot of width. However, one of the changes of this circuit is, in order to make a pass, you do have to run very close. And this is one of the circuits where the amount of rear wing you run really does determine how confident you're going to feel coming into these corners, because there are plenty of straights, but there are also plenty of corner sequences, and it's finding the right balance on the setup. And those that run more rear wing, what they may find is that the dirty air of the car they're chasing may upset the balance of the car, particularly coming through the Nürburgring and also the Imola chicanes. Sequences such as the complex dual IC, these are going to be more focused around the front end grip of our drivers. They try to turn in and balance and understeer and oversteer in equal measure. But right now, as we see Alex Brown heading onto his first flying lap, looking actually smooth there. Well, it does mean that qualifying has a key part. However, we will see battles around it. But those who can put it up the front, they may just be able to run away into the distance. But as we do look to BJ Alvarez, he comes across the timeline there, where it does look as though the livery of his car has updated. He does have the definitive paint scheme of the pink on the front, going into the faded black towards the rear. And well, they're using all the road surface and a little bit more as he rolls his way around out to turn number 3 right now. And well, that's going to be a big theme as well, using all the track width to your advantage. However, using too much of the track width and you'll very quickly find your lap has been invalidated. And well, of course, the iRacing automated system always being very keen to remind you when you've gone a little bit too far and immediately casting away the lap. There's no forgiveness when it comes to track limits around here, and we've got plenty of runoff areas to try and abuse, but abuse them too much and it all goes wrong. Conversely as well, one thing that our drivers will need to get right is setting up their car to run over the apex curves, because we do have a lot of raised curbs, and well, you'll notice, particularly as they come through the Leipzig chicane, such as what's being demonstrated here by Tobias Drucken, who goes second there in the lead on a 37.108, in the fact that if you take those curbs high, well, you gain a lot of time. However, if the suspension's not set up right, you'll essentially pogo your way over the curb, and when you come crashing back down to earth, you'll find that the suspension of the car will essentially hit its bump stops, and when it does, well, suddenly the suspension will really vibrate aggressively and the whole car will shake around and you lose control very quickly. And well, that's the last thing you want to do. So you have to set up the car to run over these curbs if you can. Some of the cars will not want to run over the curbs as much. And well, as we look to the McLaren 720S Evo of Roberto Crivelli, we do believe the McLaren a little bit sensitive to the curbs compared to some of its rivals. The Mercedes and the Ford, by comparison, absolutely love the curbs, as does the BMW. However, we do know this McLaren can be very curb sensitive, as can the Porsche 911. And that's going to be interesting here, because the cars that should go well through the corners, well, the problem is they need to abuse the curbs to get the most out of the corners, but they can't use the curbs, so therefore they will feel as though they're being held back a little bit. But that's the good fun, and that's why we have circuit variety on our schedule, because the more the merrier in terms of the circuits, and the greater the variety, the different cars we will see at the top throughout the season. And that might be an explainer as to why we're seeing Daniel Stasuk not quite up there. In practice, in the elites, he was all the way down in 8th place, and right now the NJB performance driver seems at least not to be quite there, albeit he's done this before. He did this at Misano last time out, where he did have a pretty poor qualifying performance until he suddenly leapt it all the way to the front of the field and put himself on the front row. But as they come across the line this time, well, Andrew Fairley now goes the fastest of everybody at 36.466. What does one of our drivers do? Well, Dolezal goes even faster, and then Paulsen goes even faster. And well, Stasuk meanwhile goes faster, but not fastest, as he goes to 4th. But Paulsen now is the fastest driver out on a 36.348. Elsewhere, meanwhile, in the Pro class, well, right now, as we do see him making his way around, we show you the overall top 35. That is Ruben Berings, who's currently the fastest of our pro drivers, and right now sliding himself right in amongst all the elite field. And I can imagine that Daniel Shillcock will be asking himself the question, what do I have to do to beat this man? Well, the DDK Racing team driver right now just seems to be unstoppable. Whatever anybody brings to the table, he seems to be able to say, oh, that's great, well, let me show you how it's done, and I can go significantly faster. Of course, we do have to keep in mind that all these lap times we are seeing right now they have not been validated by the track limits police, and therefore if any of these laps do incur a run wide and a track limit penalty, they will be struck off, and we will see some drivers potentially drop down the qualifying order when we do go to the grid. However, hopefully we don't get to see that, of course, because we'd love to see where they all qualify based on this session itself. But meanwhile, speaking of reverse of fortunes, perhaps the AM driver who's been struggling the most this season, given his more recent run of form in the Motoclass League Season 3 and also Season 14, well, right now, your AM provisional pole sitter is Jack Barker, and, well, I'll tell you one thing for Jack, I don't know how he motivates himself week in, week out, but he's got a lot of perseverance as the youngster because of the fact that he has had 5 rounds so far. You could argue this really has been the season of nightmares for the Acura driver for Made for Racing. Nothing has clicked together any round so far, but right now everything seems to be clicking together. But he is only 5 thousandths faster than Nathan Anstis for this AM pole position, and with the promotion of Brecht Berings, it seems to have blown this qualifying session open for the AMs, albeit Berings, to be fair, doing a good job trying to make his way up the orders. More lap times coming in, and as they do, well, we're about to get a flying lap on board with one of our drivers here, and it is going to be to Sean Cranleigh-Swash to take us around for a flying lap of the Magny-Cours Grand Prix circuit. So out to the final corner he comes then, and full throttle to line with 5 litres of V8 gallantry. He heads into the Grand Curve. Through the left hand he goes, holds the throttle in 5th gear, lets the car come to the 2 apexes, now onto the brakes at Estoril, straight lines his way into the corner, lets it roll a little bit deep, drops the 3rd gear, and now feeds the throttle back in, and full throttle here as he loads up the rear left tyre and gets it to rotate the car round. Now it's flat out all the way up towards turn number 5. As he does, you'll notice he pins the car nice and tight to the right and then gradually lets it glide over towards the left. Straight down towards Adelaide now, and braking about 150 metres to corner apex all the way down to 1st gear, and now back of the throttle as he exits out using all the exit curb there plus plenty more, using the escape road with it, and now in towards the Nürburgring chicane. Now for this one, it's going to be hit the curb high as he goes out wide and then absolutely nails it over the opening apex curb, flat out in towards 180-degree hairpin, and onto the brakes he goes, braking at about 175 metres to corner apex trail, braking all the way round in 2nd gear, and now back on the throttle, just using the exit curve to the maximum, and as he makes way out the corner, now heading all the way up towards Imola. You'll notice here this is unsighted. He goes up a rise, he can't actually see the corner, and then suddenly has to brake for it using the marker on the left-hand side, and through the left-hander he goes, lets the car roll out a little bit over to the left-hand side now for the Chateau de Ur hairpin, and here you've got to be very patient on the throttle, let the car rotate round. Now back on the throttle he goes, he comes out to the right-hander, down through chicane and in towards the final 3 corners. So as he gets himself set up for the complex to Lycée hairpin awaits him, braking 125 metres to corner apex down to 2nd gear. Through the right-hander, lets it roll deep to open up the chicane, but makes a mistake and runs out wide. And for Cranleigh-Swash, he heads to the pits because he ran a little bit wide, touched the gravel, and that was his lap invalidated. Well, putting it on the limit, but it doesn't quite work out. Christer Halsoy, meanwhile, well, he's currently 3rd in the Pro Class, and, well, off of Daniel Shillcock, they're his teammate by 2.5 tenths. He's looking quite good at the moment, at least, but he is at a cool-down lap. We have got a couple of drives still out there. Jordan Jones is the 2nd fastest rookie at the moment as we do look to the class standings, and, well, he's not too far off of Murray, only 2 tenths between the two of them, and Richard Jones is then a further 3 tenths behind. Alex Brown has just gone 7th fastest in rookie. Christopher Bates has yet to set a lap time, and we do have a newcomer on the grid who we should quickly welcome from Venari Racing in Switzerland. It is none other than Hendrik Zilka, and we welcome him to the grid in the Acura NSX Evo 22, and he'll be competing in the AM class this season, and good luck today to Hendrik. And indeed, we just found a little bit of time to welcome him as he crosses the line there and goes 6th fastest in AM. Well done to him. That's the personal best right at the close of the session. Matthew Shepperton crosses the line, and the Aztec Racing driver there goes 10th in the Pro Class, and that is a complete change of fortunes for the man who at Misano was actually battling his way through the field left, right and centre. But this time for the 390 driver, it has not worked out in the BMW M4. I don't know what's got wrong, but this is not the Shepperton we typically know of as he crawls his way around through the final corner. But that is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. It's James Powell's on the overall pole, Ruben Berings Meal Pro pole, Sean Cranleigh-Swash AM pole, and Alistair Murray rookie pole. It's time to head to the grid for our one and only race here in France. So as the drivers make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for round number 6 of the UK Sim Racing GT3 League Season 15, sponsored by VRS. And line up on pole position, it will be Paceworks Esports James Powsland with a staggering 35.961, the only driver in qualifying to set a 35, but it's a Paceworks Esports lockout on that front row because alongside him is teammate Pavel Dolezal. And then, well, equal lap times between Dolezal and Derbyshire, but it was Dolezal who set it first, so Sam Derbyshire lines up 3rd for Sim Sim coach ahead of Andrew Fairley, who was a further 10th behind for NJB Performance. On row at number 3, it is going to be the Elite Championship leader for NJB Performance, Daniel Stasuk. Finally, his run of front row starts comes to a close, but the German driver, you have to respect the fact that he may start further down the order, but don't rule him out from making his way up through the field as time goes on. He'll be in the company of his close rival there, Stuart Reynolds for Fury Sim Sport. The Ford Mustang driver starts 6th, and then we will have your pro pole sitter, Ruben Berings for DDK with Race Anywhere, beginning this one in 7th place. Well done to Ruben Berings, because he is the only pro driver to line up inside the overall top 10. He'll be in the company on the full throw of the grid of Tobias Kruken for Solpeck Precision Racing, trying to recapture the form that we saw of him from VIR, but he hasn't quite found it yet. Then we'll have Niels Pacage, his fellow countryman, starting 9th for NJP Performance, and alongside the German will be the Briton of Alberto Crivelli in the Effect Simulations McLaren, and well, we thought the McLaren was going to struggle here, and well, that struggle is definitely certain. 6.5 tenths off of the overall pole time. That's not where we normally see him in the number 90. Outside the top 10, meanwhile, starting in 11th, it's your second place pro driver of Daniel Shillcock for Tractix Racing. And he managed to out-qualify his teammate, Christer Halsoy, by 2.5 tenths. Halsoy having a nightmare qualifying session compared to what he's used to. But to be fair, the two teammates together, that will give them a little bit of a mental boost. And they're going to need it, because right behind, quick on the heels of Halsoy, Charles Philippe for DDK with Race Anywhere. And then sister DDK team driver for DDK with Digital Motor Art, Brecht Berings, as he makes his debut in the Pro class. Well, he starts there in 5th place in Pro. But to be fair, in the Audi R8 LMS Evo 2, he's bringing something very different to the table, because remember, he is the only Audi driver on this grid. Sean Cranleigh-Swash lines up behind in 15th for Pigeon Racing, and he is your AM pole sitter. His first pole position of the season. Congratulations to Cranleigh-Swash in the 117, and he is ahead of Ryan Davies, the privateer, who uncharacteristically qualified 6th in the Pro class, his lowest qualifying performance to date, and that really is going to be a position he needs to work from. Starting in 17th place, meanwhile, it'll be Niel Kenyon there for UK Sim Racing Price, second of the AM drivers, just ahead of Jack Barker for Made Racing, who in the end was demoted down to 18th place, but not by much, and indeed the top 3 of the AM class separated by less than a tenth. You can also add the 4th driver in the mix there, because Nathan Anstis was only a further, was 5 thousandths behind, starting 19th on the overall grid for UK Sim Racing Hill, but with that started 4th in the AM class. Nathan Scott round off the top 20 for Empire Motorsport in the 113, and then behind them, starting 21st, Darren Sharples, the AM Championship leader. Not a qualifying performance he'll be too happy with, but we know that McLaren is up against it here for Old Duty Cars. Then we do have, alongside him, newcomer to the grid, Venari Racing's Hendrik Zilka, and he'll start 22nd on his debut today. Good luck to him. Ahead of Casper Brotner for Old Duty Cars. The Danishman there starting 23rd, ahead of your rookie pole sitter for UK Sim Racing Hill. Well done to him. He's not stopping right now. Alistair Murray with a phenomenal rookie pole lap there. Pole in the rookie class by the best part of 2 tenths. Behind him, it was then the all-pro row of Nathan Foster, the privateer, ahead of Matthew Cheverton for Aztec Racing. We do have Jordan Jones starting second of the rookies in 27th place, ahead of Milton Tomlinson Dennis, or welder racing from STR Motorsports. Not a qualifying session he'll be too happy with, Will Tomlinson Dennis, 28th from this grid. Richard Jones then starts in at 29th place for Slow and Steady Racing, ahead of UK Sim Racing Prices, Steve Hughes. That's your top 30. Outside the top 30 on row 16, meanwhile, we have James Connolly for UK Sim Racing Stewart, ahead of Luke Checker, the privateer, in the Ferrari 296. And then we do have Rob Windsor starting 33rd for UK Sim Racing Stewart, directly behind his teammate. And alongside him will be the rookie driver, who's back on the grid as of today, BJ Alvarez, for Push the Standard. And he's going to need to raise the bar here if he wants to take a victory in the class. Alex Brown starts 35th on the final full row grid for Slow and Steady Racing, head of Sight Anstey for UK Sim Racing Price. And last but not least, starting 37th for LLA, it is none other than Christopher Bates. So the grid is set, ladies and gentlemen, and we are now only a few quarters away from going racing, as they all inch and tiptoe their way around behind the pace car here. Well, if you haven't had the opportunity to grab yourself some quick liquid refreshment, we definitely recommend you do so now, because when we go racing, it's going to be adrenaline all the way here, as a rather overcast day at Magny-Cours is not going to upset the sunshine that comes from brilliant racing action. And when you do have 37 GT3s getting to roar the way around here, well, it's going to be the roar of machinery like no other, and at the very front of it, it's going to be James Powell who takes them away. Now, all the drivers, we should point out, have been told this race is to start in single file through the chicane, given how close it is to the start line, and therefore no overtaking is permitted until they've crossed the start finish line. But for James Powell, he is now only a couple of quarters from taking us to the green. And as he makes his way into the chicane, he goes nice and early. And for Palsland, it is racing away here in round number 6 of the championship as they charge away across the line. And Daniel Stasuk immediately wastes no time. He's all over the back of Andrew Fairley. Will they even get into turn number 1? Now making his way on through, we've had a bit of trouble. Oh my goodness, they haven't even gone green, these drivers, yet. And they've already got it wrong. That is Charles Philippette, and I believe with him Niel Kenyon. They've had a lot of drama, and they park up before they've even gone. And a big slide loose there. That's Tobias Kruken getting it wrong, coming out of Estoril corner. And we'll get the feeling that rear left tyre is just lit up a little bit too much. But meanwhile, at the very front of the field, Pavel Dolezal immediately swapping places with James Palsland as they roar the way on through in towards Adelaide Hairpin. And as they do, we bring you the overall standings there, and we'll start to see how everybody is swapping up. But definitely a dramatic start for Tobias Kruken, also for Charles Philippette and Niel Kenyon. And Philippette has had to be towed to the pit as a result of the drama he's undergone, and will not the way he's worried this to start whatsoever. But with the single file formation start, it has seemingly calmed a lot of the battling down before we've really got the racing underway, and therefore we will start to see our drivers work their way up towards each other. And well, we can already see that here with Stuart Reynolds right now watching the NJB performance pair of Stasuk and Fairley like a hawk, or should we say like a horse, because that Mustang right now looking a prounce as he works his way in towards turn number 14. Coming on towards the brakes, no way through at the moment. Further back, well, Tobias Kruken may have had a nightmare start to this race, but it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. Albeit I can imagine his rear tyres in particular right now, that rear left tyre is going to be blazing hot and he's going to need to calm it down. Meanwhile, just in front, well, there's Richard Jones. Oh my good lord, what on earth's happened to Jordan Jones? He made his way out stage left there coming out of Imola, and that's not normal. Well, he's definitely made a big mistake. We'll have to get a replay of that when we can, but a number of drivers falling by the wayside here of their own volition, it would seem. Matthew Sheraton, he seemed to struggle in qualifying, and right now the struggles are not leaving him alone in the race, because Milton Tomlinson-Dennis is right hot on his heels here as they make their way across that timeline, and we ride aboard with the World of Racing STR Motorsports driver who hails from St Vincent's, and in towards the Grande Curve they go, and oh my goodness, Tomlinson-Dennis there. I don't think that Mercedes wanted to come off of the entry curve. It really just absolutely railroaded itself. Well, how he's got this car set up right now, it does not like the curbs, and I can imagine it might be a suspension setting that hasn't quite gone the right way. But in front of them, well, you've got Alistair Murray pulling out to the left there in the Mercedes AMG, the rookie driver, trying to let Nathan Foster go, and Matthew Sheraton's trying to find a way through. Sheraton up the inside there, and Tomlinson-Dennis says, mind if I come through too? Tap to the rear of Sheraton's car. It's a tiny tap, nothing too major, but Tomlinson-Dennis there making my lungs absolutely fill up with anticipation for the simple reason I thought it was going to be much closer than that, but that goes to show you how long the bonnet is from the front of the Mercedes all the way back to the cockpit. They're rolling the way in towards the Nürburgring chicane. Well, Tobias Kruken is already closing up on this. He's past Jones, he's ahead of Hughes, and now he's on the back of this. He's going to be fighting an elite driver very quickly indeed. But as we do say hello there to Sky King in the YouTube channel, also to Edward Berry, and I hope you guys are both doing well and all happy to be here. Well, meanwhile, we do see that Andrew Fairley going a little bit slowly. He's going to give up a position here to Daniel Stasuk. Now, is that due to a slowdown for track limits, or is it a tactic being deployed here to give Stasuk, the championship leader, an opportunity to gain some more points? Well, I think we could say it's either one at the moment, but Fairley there doing a great job of cutting back in and preventing Stuart Reynolds from gaining an advantage. And right now the Fury Sim Sport Mustang driver in the silver machine, they do look quite similar. You can tell the difference in the fact there's a much greater silver sheen on the second of the two Mustangs in the sunlight, and it's more reflective coating as a result. But as he roars around there, and also the black backing on the car is the way you tell the difference between the two. Well, Stuart Reynolds right now knowing that he's got to face a car that's going to be his equal, minus the driver and minus whatever setup's being run on the car as they head onto this third tour of the circuit. But from them, as they come through, we had an incident. Jack Barker's into the gravel. That's at Estoril Corner, and the gravel tracks would say he's gone straight on, and that car is grabbing Barker. He's going to be towing to the pits. That is not going anywhere further, and well, there's been drama for Jack Barker, and he had a great qualifying performance, only for it to all go wrong in the race, and the curse, it would seem, of season 15 continues to strike the made-for-racing driver. And what does he have to do to have a good day in the sun? Well, answers on the postcard, as Craig Charles once would say, if anybody knows what I'm referring to, because right now for Jack Barker, it definitely is not the holiday season in that Acura. But as Rob Windsor looks to do battle with Luke Checker, the Ferrari 296 driver of Checker, doing a great job there of moving a little bit further forward, and the rookie and the AM driver both exchanging glances, I think, at this point. And we'll remember Checker came into this series looking on very promising terms at VIR, until it all went a bit wrong and around in the closing stage of the race, but he's been picking up since then, as Matthew Sheraton, meanwhile, as I say, goes around for one driver, he's gone around instead. And well, it was definitely not a call in the script for him to have a spin, but he's had one. He rejoins off a racing line just about, and he makes his way upwards towards what will be the end of the chicane. Well, right now, let's go set Shepperton all the way down, and Sight Anti picks his way through as Alex Brown. Ooh, good speed. Now that is Alex Brown really getting his fangs out for the first time this season. Now keep in mind, of course, he's perhaps one of the least experienced drivers on this grid. However, that's not to belittle Alex Brown, as inexperience catches him out there with a little bit too much power on the throttle and sends the rear of the car sliding around, albeit great catline reflexes there from Niel Kenyon, and Brown is able to get it turned back around, and he'll learn from that one very quickly, indeed using up one of his proverbial 9 lives there as he heads down towards Lycée. But from him, let's come to our newcomer on the grid today, and here is Hendrik Zilke. And well, right now he's got Casper Brotner and Nathan Foster for close company. The AM driver here in the number 2 Acura, where he's going to let Brotner go. I think he's been smart about this. He's aware of the fact there's different classes. He knows he doesn't have to fight them. And there goes Nathan Foster up the inside as well. So the sim coach driver picks his way on through, and both of them go deep. And now this is going to lead to the uncomfortable situation where Zilke will get a much better exit out of Adelaide. He'll pick one of them off. Will he pick both of them off? The answer is no. He doesn't quite have the drag performance there in order to outrun Casper Brotner's Mercedes. However, the Acura driver does pitch himself right in front of Foster, who says, okay, I'm going up the inside into the 180 hairpin at this point. And Zilke says, be my guest, the door's wide open. And well, they do swap the places around as they head upwards towards the next chicane. But as they do, well, we've had some major incidents so far at the start of this race. We will be getting some replays of those. But just before we do, we just keep an eye on the Fairley Reynolds battle as they make their way down towards Lycée once again, and the Fury Simsport 350 here close, but not close enough. In fact, takes a lot of gravel and understeer with it, and there you can see what we're talking about, the dirty air, and also the fact just missing your line slightly here really costs you a lot of time because the gravel tracks will pull the car away, and Stuart Reynolds there with an uncharacteristic error. Well, in the end, a small error cost him a lot of time as he heads on to lap number 5. But with that, let's get some replays of what's happened on the opening few laps of this race, and we begin, of course, with what happened on lap number 1 for several tries, including this for Giles Philippette and Niel Kenyon. Now this was Philippette making his way up to speed, coming in towards the chicane, bounced over the curbs, cold tyres, car came crashing down to earth and went around. And I suspect Niel Kenyon, meanwhile, lost the rear of the car at the corner. So 2 Mercedes drivers together, both at the same corner, but different styles of error. And for Niel Kenyon, can we get on board with what happened here? Let's just listen in. Bounced his way over the curb, and the rear of the car just came down too aggressively, and in the end made contact there with Giles Philippette. They both made haste to each other, not the way he wanted it to go. This then happened to Tobias Kruken on the open lap. Esther O'Corder came to bite the sole pec position racing Mercedes driver. A bit too much apex curb, and I think that just caused the rear to slightly lift on the rear right tyre, and by lifting up it sent the car gradually around, with the centre of mass of this Mercedes being essentially in the front mid-engine configuration, i.e. it's behind the rear, the front axle if you will, and well, as a result sending the car around with a gradual momentum shift. We also did have this for Jordan Jones on the opening lap. We had drama for the rookie driver, and this was up at Imola. Now, what exactly happened to Jordan Jones? Well, took way too much apex curve there. Unsighted, I suspect, braking on the crest and turned in too early, and the 58 driver there bouncing his way to disaster. And then we had this happen on lap number 3 for Jack Barker. It all went wrong for Mr. Barker, and this was coming down in towards the Esther O'Corder. Rear of the car just snapped loose there, and well, sliding loose at that point, a passenger in his own car for Jack Barker, not the way he wanted it to go. And we also had this for Matthew Sheraton only moments later. This was at 180, got the power down. As he did, the rear of the car spun up too much, and in the end he was really just a passenger in his own car, and that explains the open lap instance we've had for the opening 3 laps of this race in France. Let's head back to your live racing. So as we do come on back, there's still plenty of distance to go, and with it, plenty of questions to be asked as lap number 6 continues to build its way forwards. But all the drivers here definitely right now enjoying some challenging racing, as we do see Nathan Foster and Milton Tomlinson-Dennis having a bit of a flash of lights and a bit of elbows out there between the two of them, and right the way right into left. Well, right now Tomlinson-Dennis, they're having to back off. Nathan Foster, I think, trying to send a bit of a message to the elite driver, which is, look, I get it, you're in a different class, but you've also qualified down here, and I'm in amongst my rivals, you're going to stay behind. And I think both drivers there working around each other for at least the time being. We can understand if things might get a little bit fiery the deeper they go into this race, because of the simple reason I think Tomlinson Dennis enjoying his racing. He's also faster at certain points on the lap versus Foster, but right now the AMG driver is not fast enough to be able to pass him and then wander off into the distance. And that's frustrating, of course, when you're the faster driver at some points on the lap, but not all of it, as we have just had a swap of position going into turn 1 between Ruben Berings and Niels Bacage, and I believe that is because the elite driver picked a slowdown penalty through the last couple of quarters and had to yield going in towards turn number 1, otherwise he would have been the recipient of a drive-through penalty if he hadn't served the automated slowdown within a certain period of time. But roaring the way up towards what will be turn number 5. All these drivers right now still pushing each other together, and we do see Daniel Shillcock here. Well, he's moving forward with Christer Halsoy, and well, as he does so, tucks in behind his teammate. These two have swapped places on this lap as they made the way down that stretch, and coming back now towards us in towards the centre of the circuit, or the infield section of the circuit. Right now, Shillcock and Halsoy working together here, with Ruben Berings being a comfortable advantage up the road as we look to your class standings. And well, to put you in the frame of mind of Berings right now, almost 4 seconds clear. But that's Ruben Berings. Meanwhile, Brecht Berings and the Audi R8 LMS Evo 2, intriguingly, well, his performances over the last couple of rounds have would really have seen him running second to Ruben in the Pro class, but right now running fourth. Now, we have said, and I know Christer has been listening very close when I've said this in previous broadcasts, when we simply said that Christer just needs to find 1 or 2 more attempts in order to get close to Ruben Berings. Well, he has definitely found the 1 or 2 attempts here, and Brecht Berings has now got to find the time, but I think Ruben's also taken encouragement from that, saying, well, if Christer and Daniel are going to find that time, I need to as well to stay ahead of the Track 6 racing pair. So therefore, it's going to be interesting to see how that top 4 in Pro plays out over the distance, and that's before you factor into the equation Ryan Davies here in the McLaren for Empire Motorsport. He's currently the 5th of the Pro drivers, and right now he's in a bit of a lonely 5th. He's got Nathan Anstis for company, albeit he's going to be in more company there if he runs out that wide out the final corner multiple more times. Anstis up the inside here in the UK Sim Racing Corvette, and well, that's brave, and in the end I don't think Davies wanted to let it go, but Anstis went for it, but you can understand why, because 2 seconds up the road from him is AM leader Sean Cranleigh-Swash, who he wants to chase down. But these drivers continue to push each other onwards, and as they do, well, we've had a bit of change further up the road. Daniel Stasuk has lost 4th place in Elite 2. Andrew Fairley will try and get a replay of that when we can. Meanwhile, Tobias Kruken, in the 9th place elite driver here, well, he's trying to pick his way past a couple more old dudes in cars, and that's the team. I'm not referring to the ages of the drivers, but as they make their way into Adelaide, that's up the inside firstly of Casper Rotner and also Darren Sharples, who now, well, Sharples will be tripping over his teammate here if they're not careful, but Rotner backs out slightly down corner exit, and they are all working together here as they make their way right into left through Nürburgring. As we do say hello there to Jordan Jones, who's got a little bit of a flustered emoji in the YouTube chat there with regards to what happened to him in the early stages. Milton Tomlinson Dennis up the inside of Casper Brotner there. He manages to scythe his way between the 2 ODIC machines, and now heading up towards Emily Goes. He'll try and pick his way past another one as we jump on board the front bumper. Or will he go for it here into the English chicane? No, he won't. He plays the patience game here, knowing there's going to be a better run as he heads towards the Chateau d'Eu hairpin if he's close enough. Otherwise, it will be a light see where he can think about it, but he's going to have to get a really good exit to do that, and we're rolling the way on out. Or sending to sight Anthony there in the YouTube chat. It talks about a bit of an embarrassing moment earlier on. We didn't quite catch that on our replays, unfortunately. But still, as I try to make the way on down, good to have you with us, Si, as always. But Tomlinson Dennis here gets so close right now. He can touch the rear bumper of his rival. But he definitely wants to keep 2 hands on the wheels. They bounce the way out of the final corner, and that McLaren just does not look comfortable as it comes down off of the curbs. Meanwhile, Tomlinson Dennis Mercedes, you can see just how much time it gains just over the 2 curbs of that chicane. But in the end, it has the back off coming into Estoril corner. Such is the way the road goes. But the battles have calmed down a little bit, and in terms of the number of laps we're expecting here today, we are expecting a grand total of 37 laps over the race distance. Of course, keep in mind we do have a pit stop to throw into the mix, and our race timer doesn't work, so therefore we're going with lap time, but we are the best part currently at least of about 12 minutes into this race as Tomlinson Dennis finally goes up the inside there of Darren Sharples. Sharples tucks in behind him, and Tomlinson Dennis now moves into 18th place overall. But from towards the mid-pack of the field, in the back of the elite class, to the very front of the elite, well, right now it is an elite performance being put on by Pavel Dolezal and James Powsland, as these two are breaking away with Sam Derbyshire. Credit where it's due. He is the fastest driver in the middle sector of the lap. for the Elite and the overall pack, with 35.51 being the fastest middle sector time that's been set so far today. And the Corvette driver here, well, he hasn't been on the pace all season, but when he has shown signs of pace, he has been on top 3 pace, and right now we're seeing more of that here today in France. He's not losing the 2 leaders either, which is intriguing, so I do wonder whether we might be seeing a turn of form here from Derbyshire, who's been there or thereabouts for the top 5, but he's just not been on the top 3 pace. But here today, he's definitely looking to be a lot happier with the way the car's flying for him as he makes his way around. And indeed, he steals my heart a little bit, because that livery, I'm not allowed to have favourites, but let's just say, well, if there are some photos of that car from our official sim racing photographer, Ryan Walker, for Ryan Walker Sim Racing Photography, and of course credit to Ryan Walker for being the official photographer at UK Sim Racing now for the best part, I believe, of the last 2 years of series run. He'll correct me if I'm wrong on that one. Well, I definitely think he'll be grabbing some snaps of Sam's car later on, and that's not a nudge to him to say please do so for next week's thumbnail. But as we talk about thumbnails, we're putting things under their thumb. Meanwhile, Stuart Reynolds, meanwhile, is still trying to find a way past Niel Bocage as the NJB performance driver, and keeping the Fury Simsport machine behind. And right now, I think for Stuart, he's seen more Ford Mustangs on his own car in a lifespan here at Magny-Cours, for the simple reason that he's been behind Andrew Fairley, he's been behind Niels Bocage, and he's still behind the last of the 2 as he makes his way up towards turns 11 and 12. But there's no way through at this time for the man. Right into left he goes, still staying close, and as we ride on board, well, right now a very distant view here, if you like, in the cockpit on the roll bar, but making his way out of the corner looking for an opportunity, but doesn't seem to be able to find it, at least for now. And they make their way down towards Lycia once again. Keep in mind, of course, they do have Ruben Berings just in front of them, and Berings just trying to keep himself in front at the moment, holding on to 6th place overall, as the battle for 6th in Elite is the focus of our cameraman's attention. And heading on to the 11th tour of the circuit now, well, the laps continue to accrue quite quickly, and, well, consistency is absolutely key. But coming down in towards turn number 3, right now Reynolds not really close enough to think about a move, but definitely trying to goad a mistake, and you can see fighting a little bit of understeer there as he made his way for Estoril quarter. The nose of the car just twitching away from him slightly. That's the dirty air effect, and therefore he's just having to fight a little bit more with the steering, and that will put a little bit more wear on that front left tyre if he's not careful. I'm sure he will have factored that in. But from him, we do come back to Casper Brotner, and still behind Darren Sharples, his teammate of a different class. But Nathan Foster is with them, and this is where some intrigue is building, because they're fighting for 7th in the Pro Class, and Foster has gradually picked his way up through the order as time has gone on. And right now, well, you would imagine if things carry on this way, it's going to be Brotner who's feeling safe because he is behind his teammate. He's got all the straight line speed plus some slipstream. But under braking, Nathan Foster closing up dramatically. Now, the concertina effect is, of course, a natural consequence of these braking zones. Heavy braking zones, we've got multiple cars together. I think Nathan Foster right now knows that the curbs are where the Mercedes will be safe, but he and the McLaren, he's really got to attack these corners when he has the confidence to do so. And at least there through Nürburgring, that McLaren didn't look to be as unsettled as it perhaps has previously been. But making his way on around, we'll see what he's going to be able to do in short order, as I believe we have had a couple of changes of position further down, including a loss of position on lap number 10 for Luke Checker, which drops all the way down to 7th place in the rookie class. And we're going to get a quick replay to explain exactly how Luke's lost his positions, because he was running at the time quite comfortably, I believe, in 4th place. Suddenly he's gone backwards in rookie, and here's a replay to explain, ladies and gentlemen. Now, this was only months ago, but where was Luke Checker in all of this? Oh, he's had a spin, and that is on the inside of Adelaide. Now, how on earth did our number 16 Ferrari driver get there in the first place? Do we have an alternative camera angle? Well, he's gone around. I think that's still on the road. I think it's on the exit of the hairpin. He's almost gone around a second time there. But for Luke having a spin, we haven't quite seen what's caused it. But for Luke Checker, it's all gone wrong. In fact, can we get a bit of an earlier replay of what happened to him? I think we can. This was slight Anthony battling with Luke, coming down to the braking zone. And, well, Anthony going very deep. Checker getting the power down, and just too eager with the throttle pedal. And then, well, he disappears and reappears. And that explains what happened to Luke Checker and what sent him all the way around the houses. Let's head back to your live racing. as we come back to plenty more racing action to come. Wolf from Checkers difficulties. Meanwhile, a lot more drivers still staying on strong. Cy Anthony now trying to pick his way past the fellow UK sim racing driver, and that is James Connolly. Goes up the inside of in the sister team machine. But right now, the UK sim racing Price driver, in tribute, of course, to the Welshman, the Welsh driver, the only Welsh Formula 1 driver of Price. Well, Anthony right now, fellow Welshman here, and trying to fly the Dragon high as he roars away right into left. His next target in the Pro Class will be Casper Brotner, but Brotner is a long way up the road, the best part of about 10 seconds in reality. We'll see how close he can get over the distance. From them, coming to some pros that definitely exchanging the battles. Well, Nathan Foster has found his way past Casper Brotner whilst we've been looking away, so they have changed place. In fact, Darren Sharples has been pulled back behind this as well. I think they've all had a little bit of some jauntiness between them, and we're going to try and find out what exactly happened between them very shortly. But Nathan Foster, there you can see it on our screens, we look back from the rear of the man who's running 7th in Pro. He's moved his way past both Brotner and Sharples, and most importantly, he's made his way past Casper Brotner to gain that place. So Foster here now starting to try and break away, and that gap is opening. But from a double left into a right-hander here, we're all the way through Estoril Bend, and Foster right now definitely keeping it all together, and you can see the confidence that Foster has, a little bit more power down there. Meanwhile, Brotner having to be a bit sensitive on the throttle and actually coming to the apex a lot earlier than he would like, and that upsetting his line. That's cost him a bit of time, and Brotner falling backwards. He'll gain down the toe, and with the straight line speed advantage that Mercedes has on the balance of performance, but Nathan Foster now definitely has got the bit between his teeth, and seems to be, as the flames spit out the rear of that McLaren, literally moving forward here and finding a bit of a second wind in this race. But up towards the Nürburgring chicane he'll go, and as he does so, well, we are going to take a quick look back at how exactly he made those moves happen to take the positions. And here we go, ladies and gentlemen. This was Nathan Foster moving up 2 places in the space of a very short period of time. Now, Brotner and Sharples, they were side by side into Nürburgring. I think they stepped over each other here, and Foster, door open. I think Brotner went to close the door on him and couldn't because of his teammate, and Nathan Foster just sees the opportunity. That's a brilliant bit of driving there from Nathan Foster. Meanwhile, Hendrik Zilka had to tuck him behind and couldn't find a way through, so that explains the change. Good one there for the number 52 McLaren driver. Back to your live racing, and Hendrik Zilka, meanwhile, he's now trying to find a way through, and well, definitely I think this is going to be a little bit of a baptism by endurance for the Acura driver on his debut, but at the same time as well, running 4th in AM, and he knows that his chance of a podium sits in front of him, with Darren Sharples literally being only half a second, if that, up the road. So therefore, Zilka right now is not going to be feeling as though this is a difficult day. If anything, this is going to be a very positive day for him if he's able to pull this off. But we'll see what will come of it as he roars his way around. Nathan Scott, meanwhile, or we do say hello to him in the YouTube chat, the man that we confused the two Nathans with in a previous broadcast, but right now Nathan Scott up the inside of Tomlinson Dennis for overall position, and well, Scott right now being a little bit of an interloper between Kruken and Tomlinson Dennis, and well, Ryan Davies, meanwhile, he'll be hoping he can keep the sole position racing at Mercedes between himself and Scott, because otherwise he'll be under pressure for 5th place in the Pro Class, and that's not the thing he wants right now as they head through 180. However, wants and desires, well, nobody's going to quite have it easy as Tomlinson Dennis there up the inside of Scott coming through 180. I think Scott went a bit deep, and Tomlinson Dennis not wasting any time. Well, for a front-engine rear-wheel drive Mercedes right now, he's driving that car as if it's mid-engine rear-wheel drive, given the way he's handling those corners. Tomlinson Dennis, he may not be the fastest driver out there, but when he gets it right, he's looking very comfortable in these low-speed corners in the 192. And well, out of Château d'Eau he roars, but now he's got to try and get back to Kruken, who is 1.1 seconds ahead. Ryan Davies, meanwhile, still has to buy his Kruken for close company, but I don't think there's going to be any change between them at the moment. But speaking of no change, we look a bit further back, and there you'll find your rookie leader. We haven't really talked about the rookie class so far today, other than the difficulties for none other than Jordan Jones and Luke Checker. So let's put the spotlight a little bit on the rookies for a brief moment. And what we can see here is that right now Alistair Murray still leads the class, but Richard Jones, well, he's gained 1 place since the start, and that will be the place gained versus Jordan Jones. And right now he's the better of the Joneses, if you will. But if you're keeping up with the Joneses, then what you'll see is that Richard Jones is not too far off of Murray, and the slow and steady racing driver is then being followed 1.8 seconds behind by Alistair Murray's sister team machine for UK Sim Racing, Steve Hughes here, as the trio roar the way around for Estoril corner. We definitely have a top 3 fight on our hands here in the rookie class, but it's all going to come down to consistency here, and interestingly, all three drivers front engine rear-wheel drive drivetrains, whereas in all of our other classes it's a mixture of front engine and mid-engine rear-wheel drive. So it goes to show it does seem as though the rookies here really enjoying their V8 machines, or 6 cylinders if you go for Richard Jones with the turbo. But out of Adelaide they come, and Steve Hughes still giving with chase. BJ Alvarez, conversely, in the Porsche 992, not quite there today compared to previous pace we've seen, but to be fair, he has been off the grid for a couple of rounds, so therefore it might be that little bit of rust is just having to be shaken off. But still, Alvarez, if he takes a 4th place here today, it will be some solid points he takes forward going into the later rounds of the Championship and also the Challenge Cup. From right into left he goes, and as he does, well, Rob wins there up on 2 wheels for a brief moment, and Jordan Jones trying to get himself back in this race, as we have had a tow to the pits. Matthew Sheraton has been involved in a bit of an incident only moments up the road. But from them, well, that's move up the inside in towards Lassie Hairpin, and Milton Tomlinson Dennis finally finds his way clear of the Pro Pack here. He's picked his way through over the course of 16 laps as we move closer and closer towards the midway point of this race. But right now, Tomlinson Dennis finally up into 16th place overall, and critically, he's still 10th in the lead, but now he has put Ryan Davies and Nathan Scott behind him, and Nathan Foster and Casper Brotner are a bit further back. But Ryan Davies and Nathan Scott now are starting to get a little bit acquainted with each other. Scott ploughs his way onwards up towards Gulf and then towards Adelaide, but we can see here with the Empire Motorsport machine, we're not quite close enough to think about a move, and in fact Davies there looking around the outside of Tomlinson Dennis. Dennis going defensive. They're really trying to put a message to these pro drivers, which is, I do not want you coming through, but I think Ryan Davies right now says, I'm not asking, as he tries to go around the outside there, but Tomlinson Dennis gets the better performance out of the car, and we're heading in towards the Nürburgring chicane here. Nathan Scott closer now, and the closest he's ever been to the back of Davies, as Davies runs out a bit wide. Rear of that McLaren sliding about there, and he's going to run deep as a result, coming out the hairpin. Empire Motorsport machine on Empire Motorsport machine here, and indeed it's going to be 2 drivers of the same team. The one fundamental rule of racing is you don't take your teammate out, but Nathan Scott right now wants to take his teammate to town here as they roar the way in towards Imola, but can't quite find it, but putting Davies under pressure here, knowing that if they don't get a move on, then Sonny, Nathan Foster, who's already gained 1.2 seconds over this lap on the pair of them, well, Nathan Foster will be there very quickly and ready to get into the fight, and it'll be the battle of the 2 Nathans. But under the bridge, down towards the complex device, here they come, and Scott close, but not quite close enough here to try and make a move. But right now, I can imagine he'll try and pull the trigger as quickly as he can. Drawing his way out of the final 2 corners. We have got some pit stops starting to plan. Nathan Anstis is into the pit lane, so he's decided it's time to come on in, and we are into the pit window quite comfortably. We're expecting a grand total of 37 laps here today. So on the 17th lap, where you do the quick mathematics, and we are looking to be roughly about 26-27 minutes into this 1-hour race, and well, everyone continue the way around here. But right now, definitely, it does seem as though the first of the pit stops for Nathan Anstis. He makes his way along in the Corvette Z06. As he comes on down here, he's going to lose a lot of places, but the one advantage he'll get from this, Anstis, is the fact he will come out in clear air, and he was competing for a podium position in the AM class, and not the outright win versus Darren Sharples. And while the UK Sim Racing driver now has clear track, he's got no pressure from behind, because there you can see is Niel Kenyon missing the front bumper after his escapades on the opening lap, as he literally crossed the timeline. He lost the front bumper in the wall onto the pit lane straight, and well, right now Nathan Anstis, the first driver to lay down that marker of a pit stop, and we will see how the field reacts as BJ Alvarez is into the pit lane as I look at my commentary booth window. And well, I think now we are going to see more drivers peel to the pits. But not so for the overall leaders of Paceworks Esports. As Pavel Dolezal or James Powsland, they continue to push each other onwards. And your top 3 round off by Sam Derbyshire, with Andrew Fairley 4th ahead of Daniel Stasuk in 5th. The NJ Performance pair starting to separate. Stuart Reynolds is in 6th place. He's finally found his way clear of the drivers behind him, with pro leader Ruben Berings in 7th ahead of Alberto Crivelli. And then we do have Christer Halsoy and Niels Bacard who round off your top 10. And well, that's how the top 10 stands. Best of the rest in 11 is Daniel Shillcock, as we do see Shillcock a bit further behind here. And then we do have your AM leader 2 places further back in the form of Sean Cranleigh-Swash, who has been indomitable so far, it has to be said, with a very solid run in the 117. And the Pigeon Racing driver here right now, he's not picking up scraps today. He is looking to put that win on the board, a win that has eluded him quite significantly over the course of the season. However, what could be said is in the fight for second place, at least out on circuit in the AM class, well, Darren Sharples, he may hold on to it, but Hendrik Zilke is moving closer and closer, but roaring his way onwards towards turns 5. Well, what we'll see here is that Hendrik Zilke in the Acura, he's close, but is he close enough? I don't think so at the moment, unless he's going to go for a do or dive move here. And well, as he roars his way onto the brakes, the Acura there will feel quite composed. You can see Sharples with a better rotation off the corner. No change between the two of them. But the one thing for the Swiss driver here is Venari Racing. He's laying down a marker here today, and indeed nobody expects anything of him because he is the newcomer. And therefore, Sharples will be looking in his rearview mirror and thinking, is that the new guy? If so, I've got to be mindful of him. And that's what a lot of drivers are going to be thinking here. So he definitely seems to be absolutely nicely positioned inside the top 5 of this AM class if we're to base it on this single race alone so far. But better exit out 180, a lot of wheel spin there for Sharples, and we're coming in towards him. Zilke again, just being smart, decides not to go for it. Tucks in, waits for his turn, but he's definitely starting to see where the McLaren driver is not as strong, and it is these low-speed corners where they have to abuse the curves, where it does seem as though the more they have to rotate back on themselves in terms of that hairpin, the more that McLaren does struggle compared to the Acura. And well, right now Zilke will take all that information, he'll process it, and it'll become a game of high-speed chess here. We'll be thinking where he can make his move. As it is, Sharples appeals into the pit, so Zilke goes another lap, and will now, can he put in some qualifying pace laps in order to be able to leapfrog Sharples based on strategy? That has got to be his go-to here, as meanwhile we do see Alistair Murray and Richard Jones. In fact, we've had a change of rookie leader. Jones has got ahead of Murray over the last few laps. How has that happened, I hear you ask? Well, we're going to be getting a replay of that very shortly, but Richard Jones taking the lead of the rookie class, and Hughes is right behind him. And let's get a quick replay to find out, ladies and gentlemen, because that is the turn in the books of the story here at Magny-Cours. And here is the replay, and this was Jones versus Murray. It was down in towards 180, and as they come free, Alistair Murray, they're making a complete ham sandwich of the hairpin. Went in tight, then went deep on the exit, and Richard Jones, meanwhile, absolutely slow and steady as they come, much like his team name, and then Jones just picking his way past there, and Alistair Murray all out of sorts. He made the corner, but definitely a very inventive way of making the corner compared to the traditional racing line, and Jones didn't look back as we return to your live racing action. But as we come back to the racing, well, Alistair Murray, for that mistake, has not fallen too far behind at all, so therefore it is still open season here in terms of this top 3 in the rookie class. And keeping in mind that they are a sizable gap ahead of the rest of the rookie field at the moment, and Jordan Jones is the 4th place rookie driver at this time, who has Darren Sharples for close company, but has a comfort gap, or the best part here, I believe, of about, I'm going to state, well, I'm going to place my guess here, as that is Christopher Bates going very wide, and we'll respect to the blue flags there as well, so a double opportunity, but Christopher Bates being the best part of about 15 seconds behind at this time, with Luke Checker and Alex Brown still behind him. Well, we're trying to close down. There is Checker in the rear of your picture, and will roaring his way on down at the moment, and we're seeing what he can do. But a change of form into the pits comes Alistair Murray from 2nd place in the rookie class. Steve Hughes stays out, so the UK Sim Racing teammates, they're going to split strategies to try and take on Richard Jones, and well, right now Jones is going to be thinking to himself, okay, one has decided to pit, the other's not, so I'm under pressure to stay out on circuit for as long as possible, or do I put myself between them on strategy? Because I can imagine that Steve Hughes will be tied to whatever Jones does. If Jones comes into the pits at the end of this lap, then Hughes will follow him, or alternatively will go even longer, but Richard Jones right now will find himself in the hot spot. Where is Alistair Murray going to come out in all of this, though? That is a question. Well, he makes his way to the pit exit, and as he does, well, Murray right now, we look to the blimp camera, has he got anybody around him? And the answer is, we look to the overall standings, no, he hasn't. So Alistair Murray has got plenty of clear track as he obeys the pit exit line, and for the Briton, this is important because now he can try and pump some laps in order to try and get ahead. Meanwhile, looking back to the battle for 5th place in rookie, well, this is Christopher Bates versus Luke Checker, and right now Checker close. Can he go for the move? I think he can't at the moment because of the run through the chicane, but he's going to think about it here as he drag races way through, and well, in the end, Bates having a bit of a difficult run out of the chicane, and Luke Checker there just sails on past up the inside and the ground the curb, a classic move, and Checker there moving back into what will be 5th place at least on the road in the rookie class. But we do have the question mark, of course, the pit stops, and well, Jordan Jones is yet to pit, as is Luke Checker, so therefore we believe it is effective 5th now that he's competing for here, and as he can close up to Jones, but Jones is a sizable gap up the road, the best part, I believe, of 41 seconds. So Checker right now really fighting for the final spot of the top 5 in his class. But from them, more still to come in terms of pit stops as we look to Ruben Berings, the pro leader, who right now has been pushed along by the elite driver Alberto Crivelli in a McLaren for Effect Simulations that definitely today does not seem to be anywhere near as comfortable as it has been in previous rounds. And indeed, many of you will remember that outside of Daniel Stasuk taking 4 out of 5 wins, the only other winner in the elite class has been Alberto Crivelli at the Brands Hatch circuit, where it was a very dramatic opening couple of laps at Brands Hatch. Indeed, many will remember, in fact, many will be saying they got the t-shirt saying "I survived Druid hairpin," but those who did not, well, they had a difficult day. But Alberto Crivelli was the man who led the way from pole position all the way to the end. But right now it is Empire on Empire here, as we do have Nathan Scott up the inside of Ryan Davies, and Ryan Davies is being hung out to dry here, with Nathan Foster now says, "Can I come through too?" but has to back off there in the fellow McLaren. But the sim coach driver here are very keen to make a move. I think Ryan Davies at this point will be saying over the radio to his teammate Nathan, he will be saying, "No Nathan, you've left me to fight with another Nathan here, and this isn't what I want." I think Nathan Scott will be grinning a little bit for the sim reason that he's now in 5th in pro, and he can try to pull away. And well, they haven't hurt each other in the team pairing, but they've definitely made it now, so that Ryan Davies is going to be the rear guard action here versus Nathan Foster. And we do know there is a bit of a rivalry between the two Nathans on the grid, a friendly one at that. But into the pits has come Sean Cranleigh-Swash, as has Casper Brotness. We've got some more pit stops playing out, as that is a slow fair, and I believe Alex Brown making his way around, as meanwhile his teammate Richard Jones comes into the pit lane from the leader rookies, and Steve Hughes follows him. So they've extended their fuel tanks as far as they could onto lap 21, and now they make the way on down, and we will see what plays out between them. We're looking a bit further back up the order to those who are out on circuit at the moment. But Christer Halsoy, currently second of your pro drivers, still keeping it together as he makes his way on around through 180 with Niels Bocage behind, and then Daniel Shillcock a little bit further behind. We are keeping an eye, by the way, at the commentator booth window regarding Jones versus Hughes and where's Alistair Murray in all of it. And we are going to pan back to that very shortly, as Rob Windsor has just passed Hendrik Zilka for 4th place in AM. But meanwhile, here is Jones leaving the pit lane. There is Steve Hughes. Where is Alistair Murray? Alistair Murray is away back here. And in fact, can our blimp camera give you a sense of perspective? It can't, in fact, because Richard Jones is there. There's Steve Hughes. And Alistair Murray has lost out massively in the pits. He's had the shortest pit stop time of the trio as well. I think Murray in his outlap, something's just gone very, very wrong. Perhaps he's made an error because, well, Alistair Murray right now has not just lost time to Jones, he's lost position to Hughes, and he is now 4.5 seconds off of the rookie leader. That is not what we expected at all. We expected him to come right back out in the midst of them, so something's definitely gone backwards. But whilst that's happening, we've got fighting here between Nathan Anstis and Sean Cranleigh-Swash, and Nathan Anstis has taken the lead of the AM class here through the pit stops. Anstis was one of the first drivers to pit in the AM class, if my memory serves me correctly, as all the pros are into the pit lane. But right now, Nathan Anstis and Sean Cranleigh-Swash are literally nose to tail, and Niel Kenyon has yet to pit, but he's right behind them. So Niel Kenyon is trying to go the longest of everybody with a heavily wounded Mercedes-AMG Evo. It's going to take him pretty much the best part of 2/3 of the race distance at this point. But Anstis and Cranleigh-Swash, now this is going to be a battle for the ages between these two. 2 bits of American muscle as Kenyon finally dips to the pit lane and says, well, it's been fun. But Cranleigh-Swash right now, he looked comfortable in the first into this race, but that comfort was for naught because Nathan Anstis now is going to try and break away with this. As out of the pit lane comes Nathan Foster, and Casper Brotner's not too far behind. And Hendrik Zilka, meanwhile, running 3rd in the AM class on his debut. The Venari racing driver is on course here for a potential maiden podium. Darren Sharples has lost out in the pits by the best part of 2 seconds end to end of the pit lane, and in fact falling all the way back there. He's currently sat in 4th place in the AM class, so he's lost out versus Zilk, and he'll have to try and catch back up. There's Jack Barker behind, who you would be hoping would be on the lead lap, but due to his incident earlier on, he's in fact a lap down, running in 8th place in the AMs, which is unfortunate for him, because I think he'd love to be in this AM podium battle, but still, I think he'll try and shadow Sharples as much as he possibly can over the remainder of the race distance. But on our 24th lap here, we've still got some pit stops to come, and indeed, they are being made by everybody minus this one driver. Ryan Davies makes his way on down towards Lycée, but as he does, there is the man who we believe is your pro leader once Davies makes his way into the pit lane, and Ruben Berings right now, well, his pace is absolutely astronomical here, and indeed tearing his way around as finally into the pits comes Ryan Davies on the lead of the pro class, and we will see the status quo resume. Ruben Berings retakes the lead of pro, and well, we do have the best part now of what will be about 20 minutes of racing still to go here at Magny-Cours. But indeed, all these drivers continue to push onwards as best as humanly possible as we look back to the elites, and Andrew Fairley with some damage on the front of that car. And as he roars his way in towards turn number 5, well, there's Sam Derbyshire, who's dropped down behind Wes Fairley over the pit stop window. In fact, Sam Derbyshire's lost out massively because he was running third, unless my memory's mistaken. He was third in the lead, and now he's dropped all the way back to 5th, and he's got to try and fight his way through as he heads in towards the right into left here. Well, Sam Derbyshire close, but not quite close enough, and the sim coach driver having to wait. We have had a bit of drama further down the order. I believe Sharples and Barker have had a coming together. We will get a replay of that when we can with regards to what's happened between them. But right now, Derbyshire here for all his strength in the first stint. Can we discern what might have caused it? Well, we can in fact, because he was only a couple of seconds up the road from Fairley and Stasuk, and I believe end-to-end pit time, Sam Derbyshire was 3 seconds slower than the pair of them, and that is what's flipped the tables on them, as well as a bit of a poor outlap from Sam Derbyshire that's cost him a lot of time. So right now, the sim coach driver here has definitely not had a pit stop to remember, and in fact it's been one of nightmares by comparison, and he's got to try and fight his way back to third place. Daniel Stasuk, meanwhile, he'll be looking at this and thinking to himself, you know what, I may not be on the pace of the top 2 today, but I can at least make an uninterrupted run of podiums this season for every round he's competed in, as all the drivers make their way on to the next lap. But as they do, with Nathan Anstis Sean Cranleigh-Swash battle, that in the AM class has calmed down. 1.8 seconds is the gap, and Cranleigh-Swash will now see that gap open up by another half a second after running slightly deep coming out of the Chateau de hairpin, albeit for a brief moment there as the timing tower gets updated, and Cranleigh-Swash right now not quite able to match the pace of Anstis. But to be fair, he might be nursing the front tyres on that Mustang, given the fact that one of the weaknesses of the Mustang is its front tyre life and also its front brake temperatures. And well, there's a lot of heavy braking here and extended braking under trail braking at this Magny-Cours circuit, and that will make the front left tyre in particular feel very uncomfortable over the race, as it will generate a lot of residual heat compared to the other tyres. But we take a pause from seeing what's happening live, and we take a look back in time now to what happened between Darren Sharples and Jack Barker only moments ago. So this was the pair making their way in towards the Lycée chicane, and as they did, well, Sharples made his way through first. It all went very sideways, and both of them together, well, in solidarity, some would say, but that's a mimic there of what happened between Niel, Kenyon and Giles Philippetts at the very start of the race. Both drivers there, I think, just being caught out by the bumps and curbs of the chicane. Very easy mistakes to make, and well, both drivers doing very well there to get themselves back up to racing speed without incurring the wrath of any other driver. Let's head back to your live racing. But as we come on back, more still to come, and all the drivers continue to push each other onwards as we do say hello there to Satinder Deensa in the YouTube chat, and I hope you're doing well, Satinder. And I do have to ask, when are we going to see you on the grid again? Because we do miss seeing you out there in the Tiki Sim Sport machines. Indeed, you've always been the start when we've had you racing, no doubts about it. And well, we do see you there. And say hello to Sir Bottlejob, who saying about with regards to shadowing Darren Sharples. But back to live pictures, and as we do, on lap number 26 of course, and Sam Derbyshire has found his way off camera past Andrew Fairley. Unfortunately, we won't be able to get a replay of that due to the timing of when we did cut away, but making the way along at the moment at least. Well, definitely a bit of a challenging day for Andrew Fairley, so there's definitely some damage on the front right of that car from the driver's perspective. The front right bumper has been peeled backwards over the rear, the wheel arch, and I'd imagine that's potentially some contact with another driver or contact with a very high curb at the very worst. But still, we'll have to wait and see what's happened between them as they make their way through 180 and staying very close together, at least at the moment. But as they roll the way around, well, I can see Andrew Fairley there saying, you'll need to see my pit exit and you'll see what happened. Unfortunately, we won't be able to get a replay of that, Andrew, but thank you for clarifying, and that does explain at least to a little bit of a purview, and we will keep that in mind as we also there to see Satinder Deensa saying he'll be back for the winter season, and we very much look forward to seeing you back there. Alex Rogers in the Twitch chat asks how the BMW's doing in this field, and well, sadly the BMW's not having the strongest of days here at the Magny-Cours circuit, as the highest placed BMW at the moment, you would have to go all the way down to 21st place, which is where you'd find your rookie leader of Richard Jones. Meanwhile, the other BMWs are out there. We've got one other that's running, that's Alex Brown, and then the one beyond that is Matthew Sheraton, who has retired from this race after multiple spins. But as we see what happens between our drivers, well, we do have the update there for Andrew Fairley to explain there's been some contact between himself and Sam Derbyshire, and that might explain why both drivers have fallen a long way down and why we're sporting some battle wounds from the racing here. But 10 laps still on the clock after this one, and that is Alex Brown who's playing in the grass there. And well, that's a bit of an odd place to go around. He toes to the pit lane. There's going to be a story to that. We'll try and find out what exactly happened to him when we can. But Alex Brown definitely pointing the wrong way, and in the end deciding to tow rather than reverse it back on around at this time of day. But the field has definitely separated out now, but one thing that has not separated out is the fact the battle for the AM lead, well, here is Nathan Anstis versus Sean Cranleigh-Swash, and well, pushing their way on around. And onwards they'll go towards the Adelaide hairpin at this time. And well, Anstis has been reeled in quite considerably recently. And in fact, we are starting to see a late resurgence here from Cranleigh-Swash. And we did say not to rule out the Ford driver here, because he does do a very good job of managing his pace over the distance. Anstis and the Corvette, well, both drivers would deserve the win, no doubt about it. And I do believe for both of them, neither driver, on the track at least, excluding when we have had the results adjusted, neither driver so far this season has taken a win. So therefore, that is going to make it very interesting in their class because of the fact, simply put, we are expecting they will be a first-time winner on the tarmac at least. But we'll have to see what's going to be able to happen between them as they roar the way through these chicanes at the moment. But coming in towards turn at number 13 at this time at least, and Anstis and Cranleigh-Swash here close, but not close enough to think about a move. But from them, well, further back, Steve Hughes. And we can see here Hughes right now, well, he's still enjoying a good run of form as he roars away out there, albeit Alistair is 6.5 seconds behind, and Hughes in turn behind the rookie leader of Richard Jones. Well, he is none other than 4.5 seconds, so those drivers still gapping each other quite considerably. Now, we have had a little bit more driving. In fact, we've had a tow to the pits for Jordan Jones and Daniel Shillcock's been in the rears. And we've also had Pavel Dolezal swap places with James Powsland for the lead of this race. So it all seems to be chop and change, but we will have to see what exactly happened between them all. In fact, we might be able to get a quick replay of some goings on there, because definitely right now the action on circuit has taken a bit of a pause, but it could be building up to a bit of a crescendo right towards the end. We take a look back then, firstly, at what happened to the leaders and how they swap places. Now this was Pavel Dolezal making his way down towards turn number 5, and I think Powsland there having a track limit infringement and having to lift off there in order to burn an automated time penalty. So that explains how they swapped places. Meanwhile, for Alex Brown, this was subsequently what happened to him from 7th place in rookie. Got the power down on the exit 180, kept it nice and tight because of the blue flags, and in the end was scoring himself into the barrier there. Was he tapped by St Anthony? Well, we'll try and find out. Can we get on board with St Anthony to explain what happened there? Here is the onboard. Well, it's very close. Let's listen. Oh, goodness me. I think there might have been a bit of a tap there for the UK Sim Racing Price Drive. It's not quite clear given the camera angle, but there might have been a tap there. I think Brown was struggling to get the car to settle on the exit curb, and then this subsequently happened to Jordan Jones only a little bit later on. And well, Jones here making his way out of Lycée in towards the chicane, and well, he becomes the 5th victim of the Lycée chicane today. And well, he adds his name to a list of cars that have gone around from immediate tow to the pits. And we also had this for Daniel Shillcock only moments later. It seems as though, well, this is the Lycée hairpin at least. Did the Tractix Racing try and make it to the chicane? And the answer is no, he didn't. So he doesn't add his name to the list, but he definitely surfed his way there. And well, if he was a skateboarder, that would be called a 50-50 grind on the apex curb of turn number 16. But still, getting his skates back on, let's head back to your live racing, ladies and gentlemen. As we come on back, still more to come between all of our drivers. And well, right now it does seem as though Pavel Dolezal and James Powsland continue to push it on as much as they possibly can. And well, it's going to be a race now that heads all the way to the finish here between all these drivers, and everybody trying to keep it together as much as they possibly can. And well, we do see James Powsland clarifying there that that was no slowdown penalty. It was Multi 21 in reference to the infamous team orders incident between Red Bull Racing Sebastian Vettel and also Mark Webber, and I believe that was in the 2009 Turkish Grand Prix, I want to say. I'm sure somebody will correct me there, because that would have been the season of Braun GP. It might have been 2010 alternatively. I'm not quite sure which year, but I know it's one of those 2 years where they did have that big coming together and really was potentially the opening set of dominoes to to fall for Mark Webber's exit out of the Red Bull team a couple of years later, to be replaced, of course, by Daniel Ricciardo. But from that and going from a Formula 1 history, well, let's park that aside and will drivers continue to carry on here as much as they possibly can. But let's come back to some close racing in our classes, and right now the big question mark is Sean Cranleigh-Swash versus Nathan Anstis. The Corvette driver Anstis still leads this. Cranleigh-Swash, though, with him as they head on to lap number 30. And after this, they will have another 7 to go. We are expecting 37 laps over the race distance. And will these drivers continue to push each other onwards as much as humanly possible. But running the way around, and as they do right now, Nathan Anstis still there ahead of Sean Cranleigh-Swash, but doing everything right, at least at the moment, as the Corvette driver. And in terms of another battle that's brewing, well, Ruben Berings, your pro leader, he has been in controlled form throughout the entirety of today. However, you'll notice that gap to second place man Christer Halsoy is actually coming down little by little. Halsoy over the last couple of laps has been faster by a couple attempts a lap. Now, is Berings just having to mitigate traffic, and therefore Halsoy now will experience the same effect, if you will? He finds the traffic, and the averages would say that he will lose the time he's gained. Or is this a sign that the Track6 Racing driver has now found a little bit of pace in the Corvette towards the end of the race? We know this Corvette is quite strong over race pace. It is a little bit of a jack of all trades, master of none. It's also a very difficult car to get used to, just because of the fact some like to refer to it essentially as a merging together. Imagine if you took the Ferrari 296's Aero model and decided then to bolt a V8 into it and make the car a little bit more understeery on the front end. That's what someone's told me in the past. But right now, one thing I can tell you is that Halsoy is definitely showing that he's enjoying this car. But change of places, meanwhile, in third for the elite, that's a change of position between Derbyshire and Stasuk, as Andrew Fairley is getting close behind, and the NJP Performance pair are back together as they chase after Derbyshire here. And Derbyshire back in the hunt now for a podium place, and what would be, if he manages to bring this home, I believe Derbyshire's first elite podium of the season. I'm just double checking my records here, and in fact, yes, it would be his first podium of the season if he is able to hold on to it. So Derbyshire here trying to go for a first in his campaign for season 15, and will he be able to hold on? We will find out. Now, we do have a bit of a question there from none other than, I believe, was Alex Rogers TV in the Twitch chat, saying about track temperature, or track temperature standing at the best part of 37 degrees centigrade at the moment, as our drivers roar the way around, and everyone continues to push onwards as Niel Placage there up the inside of Christer Halsoy, and that is going to force Halsoy a little bit further down the order. In fact, that will cause the gap to Berings to open up to 3.5 seconds. However, Ruben Berings does have some traffic up the road in front of him, so it gives, it takes, left, right and centre as they roar the way on around. All the drivers here continue to make their merry way on, and Tobias Cruiken a little bit further back. Well, he's been able to break away from Tomlinson Dennis over the distance in the fight for 9th in the elite class, but he continues to find the rear of Daniel Shillcock's McLaren for close company. We ride on board here the front bumper of the Mercedes driver as the sole pet position racing car continues to try and find a way into the mix. Although saying that, Devin's going to find the run there onto the start-finish straight, and we have had a change of position further back. Neil Kenyon's moved up into 5th place in the AM class versus Rob Windsor, as we do see Cruiken there so close right now. Well, I think he's going to have the better run here, coming all the way round Estoril Bend and onwards towards Goldfield Go. In fact, I think he's guaranteed to have this here. Surely the speed he's coming out of that corner. We know that Cruiken does love to run quite a bit of rear wing on that Mercedes, but even so, when you're sniffing the tyre of another car that much and that closely, you are going to gain an overspeed. And here comes Cruiken up the inside of Shillcock in towards Adelaide Bend, and that is going to be absolutely nailed on there. Lovely movement from Cruiken all the way from Estoril to Adelaide, got that set up, and well, moving up into 11th place overall, but maintains tonight in elite. But as he carries on, well, meanwhile, we need to wind our way back to Kenyon versus Rob Windsor, and these two swap places for 5th in the AM class. And how exactly did they swap the positions? Well, here's a replay to explain. So we take a trip back then to lap number 31, and it was a run out of Estoril Corner here, very similar to what we just saw from Cruiken versus his rival of Shillcock, and it was a run there for the Mercedes driver of Kenyon, who absolutely blasted his way past the sister team machine of Rob Windsor there, and Windsor in having no response other than to back off into Adelaide Bend, and indeed the Mercedes just too powerful. But from them, let's go back to your live racing, ladies and gentlemen, because there's still plenty more to come before we see the checkered flag. To coming on back then to your racing, and well, on to lap number 33 we go, and our race leader here of Pavel Dolezal, well, right now leading by a second or so over teammate James Powsland, and well, the Paceworks esports drivers continue to work together as they roar their way towards the conclusion here. And it really has been a phenomenal run so far today from the 191 and the 786. A 1-2 on the cards, and understandably, well, Dolezal will be given the opportunity to take home the win from his teammate for the simple reason he is the closest competitor to Daniel Stasuk in the Elite Championship. And right now, Dolezal needs the win here today in order to break down a little bit of the points momentum that Stasuk has over his rival, because keep in mind that coming into this round, well, it was Stasuk leading by 24 points, and if things finish as they currently stand, with Stasuk down in 4th place, that gap will be shrunk to 13 points, so therefore it will be a sizable change in momentum with the drop scores having a consideration. But remember, we will continue to update those drop scores as we go deeper into the season, and there are 2 drop scores this season. So right now, Daniel Stasuk with 4 wins in effectively 6 rounds, where you can imagine he is on a very comfortable set of points. And well, for Dolezal, he needs to start adding some wins to his trophy cabinet, because otherwise the Elite Championship, when we get to round number 10, it's only going one way, and it is going to the NJP Performance Accurate, not to the Paceworks Mercedes. But we will see how that plays out later on the season. We've got a long way to go before that story is completed. But speaking of stories out there at the moment, well, we do have Luke Checker here, currently running in 4th place of the rookies, and he's getting a little bit comfortable with James Connolly just in front of him. Well, the AM driver under a bit of pressure as they make their way left and to right. But we will see what's to come of them as they roar the way for Estill Bend. But I think the Ferrari there running a little bit deep does get it back on the cutback run all the way on through. And in fact, that is going to be a huge run there for the Ferrari. Well, I'm going to be made to mark my words there as Luke Checker right now slingshotting his way around the outside. And we know that Ferrari has a lot of top end speed if it can get there. It does take a long time in 6th gear. But he's going to battle side by side with James Connie, who would like Checker to back off. But Checker, I think, is going to say here, no, I kind of want this, because otherwise I'm going to have Christopher Bates gradually gaining a little bit of time, albeit Bates is 11 seconds behind. And meanwhile, big flash of lights there, and that is a flash of lights from Andrew Fairley. In fact, not Fairley, that is, I believe, and it's not Stuart Reynolds either, that is Niels Bacage, who is trying to find his way through for NJB Performance, wants the blue flags to be respected, and in the end makes his way all the way around. As he makes his way around the houses there, well, right now Christer Halsoy will hope that the same courtesy is extended to him, and it will be there as Checker backs off and lets the Corvette Z06 driver make his way through in 10th place on that lead lap. But back to Fairley versus Reynolds, and Andrew Fairley there with a very poor run coming out of the turn number 13 hairpin, and that is going to release Reynolds up into 5th place here, so a change in the Mustangs, and well, bit of a surprise there, not a welcome one if you're a Fairley fan. But he roars his way up through, bounces away over the curbs, and immediately coming back here as we ride on board of Andrew Fairley. Well, he may have some damage on the car, but right now the NJB Performance driver is not going to let it damage his mood as we head into the 3rd lap from the end here. And we're right now fairly close as Reynolds there runs a little bit deep. And notice the differences in lines there. Fairley enjoying a much tighter run through, particularly with the dirty air. Reynolds lets the car roll deep, cuts back nicely, and is able to build a bit more momentum as they roar the way down the stretch up towards Adelaide. We have meanwhile had an incident for Niels Bacage off camera, and that's seen him towed to the pit. So he is now, I believe, retired from this race, unfortunately, due to an incident. And we'll see what's going to happen between these drivers. They continue the way onwards, but they're pushing their way every step of the way here. As Fairley right now trying to come back at Reynolds for the top 5 spot in the elite class. But will he be able to do so? Well, this distance he may not be able to, but then again, never say never. We've still got some time, and there's also some traffic to blame to it, because Stuart Reynolds right now has a lot of cars in front of him that are going to be a lap down. Well, the first one there being a McLaren, and that is in the form of Robert Windsor for UK Sim Racing, who right now will be very cognizant of those blue flags, as much as he would love to chase after Neil Kenyon, who is only 3 seconds up the road. But I think he's going to have to put his desires aside and respect the fact that the leaders will want those blue flags to be obeyed. In fact, he does so immediately there, and with Stuart Reynolds going around there, and well, for our lap down driver, making it nice and simple. Good awareness there, and right now all drivers are aware they've got to finish the race before they get those points. As meanwhile, is that Neil Kenyon off the road? Yes, it is. That was a big dust storm being kicked up. He's lost the place to Rob Windsor. But Neil Kenyon, well, he had it all go wrong at the very start of the race here through the LIC chicane, and the context still IC right now comes back to bite him once again as he goes on to his penultimate lap of this race. And we're going on through there. That is Ruben Berings, who's absolutely on the attack versus Alberto Crivelli. Well, he's leading pro right now, and Christer Halsoy is 5.3 seconds back. I don't think there's any pressure here for Berings all the way to the finish, but Berings still wants to try and make this an even bigger result before all is said and done, and who can blame him, to be fair? I think the confidence is with him. The same for Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, who started all the way down in 28th place, and this has been a phenomenal drive from Tomlinson-Dennis. He's not only gained any places in the lead, but to be fair, to pick his way through the field as he has, at now 17 places gained since the start, you can't besmirch the man, because right now, the 192 Mercedes definitely has picked up the most places of everybody here today. The only one who comes close to him is Cy Anthony with 16 places gained, having started in 36th. So therefore, we've had some very strong performances from our drivers. But with the final lap not too far away, and we do come all the way back up to Pavel Dolezal and James Powsland. But there they are, 13 seconds clear of Sam Derbyshire in third. And right now, the Paceworks Esports pair in the Mercedes, indeed, you could say they're going for a formation photo opportunity here, or where they've got one more turn of the circuit to go. The white flag will wave, but next time they come around, well, they'll be looking towards that checker flag. And for Pavel Dolezal, a win, a first win of the season, is not too far away, and it was denied at Misano, given the drive-through penalty. But right now, you would imagine that everything is going the right way. He just doesn't need to make any mistakes. But of course, it's much easier said than done in these very late stages of the race. Looking back to Daniel Shillcock, well, he's still chasing after Tomlinson-Dennis here. These two still looking at each other, quite strangely. And Sean Cranleigh-Swash, meanwhile, all over the back of Nathan Anstis here for what could be the win in the AM class. They will have one more tour of the circuit before this is all said and done, but Cranleigh-Swash has definitely dug deep to find some pace here as they make the way to the end of lap 36 for what's their race. But after this, the Pigeon Racing driver knows he's only got one more attempt at this, but can he find it? Anstis right now, all he needs to do is make that Corvette as wide as humanly possible around here, and he knows he's got the pace to match Cranleigh-Swash, as Swash has a very poor run there off of the Lycée chicane. That's going to open the gap up. He doubles it to almost 7 tenths. So going on to this final lap, Cranleigh-Swash has now got to get it all done, and he's had to reset all the progress he previously made. Well, we will see what he can do as he runs a bit deep there for Estoril. Has he overcooked it as the tyres started to give way on this final lap? Well, he has the slightly better exit there. He will gain the time, but Cranleigh-Swash knows he's got to find some magic here as he powers his way along, but he's too far back right now. We'll keep you apprised of this as we go, ladies and gentlemen, as changes further down the order. Meanwhile, got Alberto Grilli versus Ruben Berings as they go up towards Imola. He's going to look for it, but to no avail. We must come to the front because the checker flag waves. And for Pavel Dolezal, he was denied at Misano, but today he's not denied. It's a 1-2 for Paceworks Esports, and it's Pavel Dolezal who takes victory ahead of James Powsland, with Sam Derbyshire coming around to complete his first podium of the season here. Third place, what a drive from him as he comes to the line over on in the elite. Daniel Stasuk, his first time off the podium this season, but fourth is not a slouch even in position, and he finishes ahead of Stuart Reynolds with Andrew Fairley 6th place in a wounded car. Alberto Grilli at the line. Oh, goodness me, a hit to the barrier there. He'll take 8th behind your pro winner, Ruben Berings, who I think passed him right at the end. We'll get a replay of that when we can. And then Christer Halsoy, runner-up in pro, ahead of Tobias Kruken, who completes your top 10. Milton Tomlinson-Dennis will take 11th ahead of Daniel Shillcock, who will round off your pro podium. There'll be Brecht Berings on his pro debut, taking 4th in class, with Nathan Anstis versus Sean Cranleigh-Swash. What's going to happen between the two of them at the very end here? Well, Nathan Anstis will hold on, and he takes his first AM win of the season, and Sean Cranleigh-Swash is denied again, but he becomes a runner-up for the second time this season. And then we'll have some time before we get to Hendrik Zilka, when in fact, I believe, here comes Zilka. He's proud of it. I think he's run out of fuel there at the timing line, but it doesn't matter. Hendrik Zilka on his debut for Venari Racing. What a drive from him. Third place in AM class and an absolutely staggering performance. Meanwhile, we come to the rookies. Let's not forget about them. And in the battle of Richard Jones, Steve Hughes and Alistair Murray, well, Murray has finished a lap down, given the way the overall laps have come. But for Richard Jones, look at this, ladies and gentlemen, the slow and steady racing driver. He finally does it. He finally takes his first win of the season, and he's probably asked himself, how long has it taken me? Well, it's taken him 6 rounds, but he's made the magic happen. And Steve Hughes will finish 2nd place there for UK Sim Racing, behind the slow and steady BMW. And Alistair Murray a lap down, taking 3rd in the rookies as all of our drivers come to the finish. And as they do, well, we are going to get the race results very shortly. But first, I believe we just need to get a quick replay of some battling right towards the very end. And what was a race that was just as much about strategy today as it was about overtakes. And we need to take a look back at how Ruben Berings versus Alberto Grilli came to a close. Because I believe there might have been some elbows out between them right at the end of this race. And here it was then. We left them at Imola, where they were going too wide for a brief moment. And out of Château d'Eau they went. A cut back there from Ruben Berings Berings, and this was for 7th place overall, to be fair. It wasn't for class position, but they were to go anyway, and Ruben up the inside there, but Gravelli trying to force it all the way around the outside on the McLaren that's not been on the pace today, but in the end for Gravelli, well, a smooth move there from Ruben Berings, and to the line, got it done, and for Alberto Gravelli, frustration there, I think, as he exited the final corner, car into the barrier, and just knowing that things have not clicked together today. But still, that's how it's all ended between them, ladies and gentlemen. And as we do return to your live racing pictures, what an incredible round of racing here at the Magny-Cours circuit. But as all our drivers cool them down, we take a look to the scenic view, and here's your race results subject to any stewards' inquiries in what has been our 6th round of the UK Sim Racing GT3 League Season 15, sponsored by the Virtual Racing School. We start off with the overall positions, and we will focus just on the podium finishes overall because the points are scored in class. And as we can see, Pavel Dolezal, your winner for Paceworks Esports, making it a 1-2 finish ahead of his teammate James Powelson there. And what a drive from the team, a huge injection of points there for both of them, and indeed for the team as a whole, that is going to feel absolutely magical. Sam Derbyshire, third there for Sim Coach, indeed his first podium of the season, and what a performance, indeed one of the unsung heroes of today, Sam Derbyshire, albeit we didn't quite see what happened between himself and Andrew Fairley, and there might be a Stewards investigation with regards to that, but definitely airing the pace for a top 3 today and showing it in the 666 machine. But from the numbers from hell, it was a little bit of a hellish day for Daniel Stasuk for NJB Performance. To be fair, he's got the points to spare. However, 4th place, not on the podium, and many have got to ask the question, is this the sign of a bit of a decline? Well, he'll be hoping to right the wrongs of that in a week's time. Stuart Reynolds took 5th there for Fury Sim Sport, being the leading Ford Mustang in the end, head of a wounded Andrew Fairley for NJB Performance after a pit lane incident. We then saw Ruben Berings take 7th place, but from the overall position, but for him, pro victory for DDK with Race Anywhere in an absolutely brilliant drive in the Porsche 992. Alberto Gravelli was right behind him for Effect Simulations in their battle that ran the race distance, with the elite drive then followed up by the 2nd place pro finisher, Christer Halsoy for Tractix Racing, who kept Ruben Berings honest over the distance, but didn't quite have the final couple attempts once again to close the gap. From his Corvette, it was then the Mercedes of Tobias Kruken and round off your top 10 for Solpec Precision Racing, and a special mention there to best the rest in the 11th, Milton Tomlinson Dennis, 17 places gained from 28th to 11th, and finally found himself on the back of the elite pack right at the end of the race, a World of Racing with STR Motorsports after a nightmare qualifying performance. 3rd in the pro class went to your 12th place finisher Daniel Shillcock for Tractix Racing, but you have to go down to 14th place to find your AM winner Nathan Anstis for UK Sim Racing Hill, who takes his first class win ahead of Pigeon Racing's Sean Cranleigh-Swash. Nathan Foster and Ryan Davies then separated those two from what was Casper Brotner, and Casper Brotner interluded to then have our 3rd place AM driver Hendrik Zilke finishing in 19th place for Venari Racing on his debut. Well done to him on a maiden podium in his first race in the series. Cy Anthony round off your top 20 for UK Sim Racing Prize, having gained 16 places since his 36th place start. And then we do look to the rookie podium, where Richard Jones was your winner in the rookie class, 21st on the overall road, but most importantly for the slow and steady racing driver, finally getting that first class win on the board. Steve Hughes took the runner-up spot there for UK Sim Racing Prize. He'll be smiling about that one, and I know some good points coming his way. And in 25th, Alistair Murray there, a lap down, but still he won't be upset about that because the 3rd place in the rookie class added to his 2 recent wins means that his championship momentum continues to go on strong. He was one of many to finish a lap down. Just ahead of him, Darren Sharples in 24th did the same, and it was a lap down all the way down to BJ Alvarez in 31st, who was absolutely anonymous in this race. To be fair, we didn't shine the camera in for too long, but to be fair, BJ Alvarez as well, not quite on the pace as would have been expected, and therefore there's some questions to be answered when he heads to Interlagos in a week's time. It was 2 laps down, but still to the finish for Jack Barker and Alex Brown, where Niels Bacage 3 laps down, and unfortunate retirements for Jordan Jones, Matthew Sheraton and Giles Philipperts. Coming from then to the individual class finishing positions, and here we start off the story of the elite, and as we can see, a 1-2 for Paceworks Esports, with Pavel Dolezal getting that important win over James Powelson there, but to be fair, the team working together in order to make that happen. Sam Derbyshire, 3rd there for Sim Coach, maiden podium, and an absolutely happy one with that, head of Daniel Stasuk for NJB Performance, our championship leader there losing some points, but not too many, as his championship campaign still looks strong, with Fury Sim Sport Stuart Reynolds rounding off your top 5. Andrew Fairley was 6th for NJB Performance, and well, definitely not the round he wanted today, but some great pace being shown and expect his Ford Mustang to be on fine form in a week's time. Head of Alberto Gravelli in the McLaren for Effect Simulations that definitely just did not have the pace today. I think the driver had all the eagerness to be on the pace, but the car was not obliging. Tobias Kruken for Solpec Precision Racing enjoyed a lot of battling with the pro drivers, as did Milton Tomlinson Dennis, and the World of Racing STR Motorsports driver completed the elite drives on the lead lap, with Niels Bacage finishing 3 laps down for NJB Performance in 10th place. Off to the pros we go, and in the pro class, well, Ruben Berings continues his run of form, and an absolutely brilliant win there for the DDK with Race Anywhere driver, and well, right now, both brothers are in at that class, but Ruben Berings been a class above, it would seem. Christer Halsoy, meanwhile, was the best of the rest in second for Tractix Racing, ahead of teammate Daniel Shillcock, but to give credit where it's due, both teammates working together in the early stages to save some fuel, but over the distance, Halsoy finding the pace, and Shillcock having to settle for third. Then Brecht Berings, 4th there for DDK with Digital Motor Art, and on his pro debut on the circuit today, will definitely show some great pace in the Audi R8, but I can imagine the Audi may not have been the most comfortable car here at Magny-Cours, but in Interlagos it could be a very different story. Behind him, Nathan Foster, the privateer, ahead of Ryan Davies for Empire Motorsport, who took 6th place, and then it was only 2 seconds back to Casper Brotner for Old Dudes in Cars, who didn't quite find the pace until the last couple of laps. Cy Anthony took 8th for UK Sim Racing Price after an open lap instant, with Nathan Scott 9th there for Empire Motorsport, and it was Matthew Sheraton for Aztec Racing and Giles Philippets for DDK with Race Anywhere, who were non-finishers with early retirements. In the AM class, the third of our classes, we saw the story was Nathan Anstis taking victory by half a second for UK Sim Racing Hill over Sean Cranleigh-Swash for Pigeon Racing, and taking his first win on the road as a result in the 96 Corvette. Sean Cranleigh-Swash did everything right, and the strategy in the end just did not pay off, and he had the pace to stay close but not the pace to make a move. But still, we can expect sparks between the two of them next week out. Hendrik Zilke, meanwhile, well, he's definitely announced himself on the stage today, and the Swiss driver there for Venari Racing, he'll be absolutely ecstatic about that. I know with that performance, well, what else can come after that? Well, he'll be feeling as though everything is looking strong. Ahead of Darren Sharples there, a lap down for Old Dudes in Cars, but still 4th place on the road and some good points. From the championship leader, who will lose his lead as of this round, I do believe, as a result of the points, we also see a lap down at Rob Windsor for UK Sim Racing Stewart, with UK Sim Racing Price and UK Sim Racing Stewart and Neil Kenyon and James Connolly completed all those lap down in AM, and 2 laps down, but still finishing, as is the Racing Spirit of UK Sim Racing, made for Racing's Jack Barker there. And, well, a difficult day today, but surely in round number 7, he's got to have some luck come his way. If not, well, I can imagine, what's the inverse of buying a lottery ticket? I'm not quite sure, to be honest. Well, it might be buying a lottery ticket and then throwing it into the shredder when it's all your winning numbers. But still, putting a little bit of a joke aside, an old classic British proverb, let's move on to the rookie class last but not least. And what we can see is Richard Jones there for Slow and Steady Racing, almost 3 seconds clear at the end, but kept honest over the entire distance over Steve Hughes and Alistair Murray. But in the end, he stood ahead of the 2 UK Sim Racing team drivers and took that victory, and an important first victory of the season it was. Steve Hughes and Alistair Murray then for UK Sim Racing Price and Hill wrapped up your podium, and it was lapped down from Murray to Luke Checker, with the privateer there in 4th place in the Ferrari, but another solid drive. Christopher Bates for the Triple LA team was 5th, and just ahead of BJ Alvarez for Push the Standard, with 2 laps down to Alex Brown, but still points on the board there for the Slow and Steady Racing driver, and an unfortunate late race retirement for Jordan Jones, the privateer. But those were all your finishing positions, ladies and gentlemen, subject to any stewards' inquiries, and we may bring the broadcast to a close today, but of course, we do have what is a little bit more of this broadcast itself to conclude before everything is all said and done, because the racing has stopped, but we've got some VRS giveaways now to do, and let's get to our giveaway winners then, and of course, we need to do our giveaways for what will be the 3-month, 2-month and 1-month draw once again. Now, how do we do it? Well, we're very shortly going to populate what will be our Wheel of Fortune here. And in fact, we are going to start off with a 3-month VRS subscription giveaway. All 37 drivers who took part today all made it to the grid for the racing action, so therefore they will all be eligible. However, we do need to remove some names from this, and for the 3-month winners, we do need to remove Pavel Dolezal. We also need to remove James Powsland, I believe, he won last time out. Xander Hill wasn't on the grid, so he doesn't need to be removed. Ryan Davies does need to be removed. There he goes. And we also need to remove Simon Bamber. Well, he wasn't on the grid today. And we also need to remove Cy Anthony as one of the administrators for this series. He has asked that his name be removed from the Wheel of Fortune. But without further ado, we do have all the drives on screen. And for the 3-month draw, let's spin the wheel and find out who's your winner. And well, he may have missed out on the rookie win by a small margin, but he was able to pip his rival Richard Jones to the 3-month VRS subscription raffle win by a small margin in return. Congratulations to Steve Hughes. We now come to the 2-month draw, and here, well, of course, it's going to be the same set of names, but we've got a few more to delete. And in terms of those to be deleted from this one, well, we're going to start off with Jack Barker, who needs to be deleted. There he goes, as he makes his way off the list. Simon Oldfield wasn't on the grid, so we'd have to delete him. Darren Sharples needs to go because he won back in round number 3. Simon Bamber wasn't on the grid. We do need to remove Cy Anthony as an admin. And Stuart Reynolds also needs to be removed. There he goes. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's spin the wheel and see who gets the 2-month VR subscription. And a big congratulations to James Connolly, who takes home the 2-month VR subscription from round number 6 of the championship. Last but not least then, who takes home the 1-month subscription? It may be the shortest duration one, but it's going to be appreciated by the winner, no doubt. Pavel Dolezal gets deleted because he won in round 1. In round number 2, it was that James Armstrong, who wasn't on the grid today. In round 3, it was Christopher Bates, and he gets deleted as a result. Cy Ansley, well, he gets removed. He was your round 4 winner. And Nathan Scott, we do have to unfortunately delete there, your round 5 winner last time out. And, well, Simon Bamber not on the grid, so we don't have to delete his name. So without further ado, let's spin the wheel for the final time and see who wins the 1-month draw. And it's going to be Milton Tomlinson Dennis. Well, a ferocious drive, rewarded by the driver with a bit of good luck and a 1-month VR subscription. And all of our winners, a big congratulations to them, will be contacted by the UK Sim Racing administration team after tonight's broadcast to let them know how they can claim their VRS subscriptions. But with that, let's give you an update on the provisional standings then after 6 rounds of racing. And we start off with the Elite. And what we can see here is that Daniel Stasuk's lead continues to stand. And my goodness, does it stand strong, because a dent has been made, but only a dent down to 13 points by Pavel Dolezal. And right now, the NJB performance driver will know that he can afford to lose 1 or 2 wins, but he can't afford to lose them all. And Pavel Dolezal now knows that he needs to keep these wins coming. Niels Bacard with a difficult day today, only 12 points to his name from this round. He falls to 3rd for NJB performance, and only 2 points ahead of the trio of Sam Derbyshire, James Powelson, and Alberto Crivelli. Well, right now, the battle for 3rd is definitely coming on strong as we head through the second half of the season. And it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out the deeper we go. Stuart Reynolds sits in 7th for Fury Simsport, a little bit further behind, with Tobias Kruken for Solpec Precision Racing in 8th, and your top 10 is completed by Milton Tomlinson Dennis and Joe Newman. Best of the rest of the length, only by result countback, is Austin William Campbell, and then we do have Simon Bamber, James Ibrahim, Andrew Fairley, James Armstrong, Casper Tunstead, Jarrett Lee, Michael Gray, Helder Gonzalez, and Jan Duffner there, rounding off your elite standings. I wonder where we'll see the 33 driver on the grid in a week's time, because that is a new name, and it might be a new driver for round number 7. But going on to the pro class, meanwhile, well, here we do see the complexion is a little bit similar. We do have a leader who's standing strong still, and it's Ruben Berings, who leads by 11 points over his brother Brecht, albeit Brecht now under pressure immediately from the Tractics racing pair of Christer Halsoy and Daniel Shillcock, and the question will be, will it be a 1-2 for DDK at the end of the season, or can Tractics Racing get themselves in amongst the top 2 spots? Well, with the top 4 separated by 16 points, it's now a further 8 to Ryan Davies in 5th, and right now the Empire Motorsport driver still holding on form, ahead of Casper Brotner for Old Dudes in Cars. Nathan Foster sits in 7th, only ahead of Giles Philippets based on result count, back by a frustrating day today for Giles Philippets, no doubt about it, with Darren Norquette and Xander Hill rounding off your top 10. Behind the Tiki Simsport driver, we have Cy Ansley, who's ahead of Nathan Scott by 9 points. And it's Matthew Sheraton, Malik Bass, and Christian Maltret who complete your pro order. You come to the AMS, and well, from 2 classes where you got a runaway leader, right now, Cranleigh-Swash is starting to try and run away with the lead at least, because with this result today, he takes the lead, and he takes it by 6 points over Darren Sharples. But the Pigeon Racing driver will know that the season is built on consistency, and he's got good foundation so far, but so has Darren Sharples. There's very little between the two of them. In fact, they would be on equal points if it were not for the penalty for Darren Sharples from round number 2 at Brands Hatch. Now, keep that in mind. This championship could go to penalties at the end of it. Niel Kenyon, he sits a further 5 behind in 3rd for UK Sim Racing Price, ahead of sister team driver UK Sim Racing Stewart. That's Rob Windsor, who's 23 points behind, and our top 3 right now have disappeared off into the distance, and then the fight for 4th is where things really have blown wide open. Because from Windsor to Weston to Barker to Oldfield to Anstis to Connolly, that is only 8 points, and that is full through to 9th. And that's before you consider further 4 points behind is Daniel Pays, who wraps up the top 10. Peter Duke sits in 11th, not on the grid this time round. We hope to see him in a week's time. He's ahead of Hendrik Zilka, who takes 26 points from his opening round. How far can he rise over the course of the season? Well, I think his focus will be more on the Challenge Cup. More on that in a bit. With Matt Edmondson, Jeffrey Damon, Ryan Woolsey, and Ashley Brooks rounding off your AM standings. Going to the rookies, last but not least, our Drivers' Championships, and here we can see in the rookies, it is Alistair Murray for UK Sim Racing Hill, who now holds a 15-point advantage over BJ Alvarez, who picks up some good points today. But keep in mind, only one drop score being accounted for so far. In fact, it might be 2 drop scores being accounted for, but at the moment, at least, BJ Alvarez has locked in 2 zeros as his drop scores, whereas Alistair Murray has yet to take a second 0 score, and therefore that is why the gap is so large, and we could see the pendulum swing here in the next couple of rounds. From the push to standard driver, it's then a gap, and my mathematics would put that gap at the best part of 18 points to Slow and Steady Racing's Richard Jones in third, who with that win today now moves clear of Christopher Bates and Jordan Lee Jones, but still the fight for third is well and truly on. John Davies, not on the grid, therefore sits in 6th for the wrong stuff ahead of Stuart Pearson for Slow and Steady Racing, and his teammate Alex Brown is only 2 points behind. Luke Checker and Steve Hughes complete your top 10, and outside the top 10, best the rest in length is Dan Oliver Fox, head of Darian Giacovelli, with Pavel Brewis, Simon Cheshire, and Thomas Helmer wrapping up your top 15. Behind the NLKL Racing driver is Simon Hartley, Reese Kitley, and Martin Fernie, who complete your rookie standings. Coming to the Teams Championship standings, well, here we can see your top 15 is as follows. And DDK with Digital Motor Art, they still lead, albeit by 7 points only over NJB Performance. And the DDK team there, well, at least in this round, not adding any points to their tally, and then the NJP Performance are getting a little bit closer. But with that landmark score, the 1-2 in Elite, Paceworks Esports now leap their way into third and are only 3 points behind their rival team in the Elite class and are only 10 points behind the leaders. But it'd be rude of us not to include Tractics Racing in that equation, as they sit in fourth on 200 points. This team's championship, I think it's going to go the distance. Old Dudes in Cars sit 5th ahead of DDK with Race Anywhere, and then outside the top 6, SAS Racing are only 3 points behind. It's UK Sim Racing Hill a further point off in 8th, but they're 4 ahead of UK Sim Racing Price, with the trio of the UK Sim Racing team staying together still, with UK Sim Racing Stuart completing a top 10. In 11th, it's DWO as SimCoach Setups Red ahead of Pigeon Racing, with Effect Simulations only behind Pigeon Racing based on result countback. And wrapping up your top 15, it's Push the Standard and SimCoach, with then Fury Simsport only a further 5.25 points behind in 16th place. Now coming to the Challenge Cup, and of course, a reminder, this is scored based on where you finish in class and you take all the points and all the drives are just merged together here. And Ruben Berings, after the first round here at Magny-Cours, leads in the top 15 of the Challenge Cup because he did take the win plus the fastest lap and pole position in his class. But close behind him is Nathan Anstis by a single point, and then you've got 30 points apiece for Richard Jones, Pavel Dolezal, and James Powsland, where Powsland intriguingly taking second in the lead, but taking the fastest lap and pole position in the Elite class. And how about that? If they had not swapped the places around for Paceworks Esports, well, he would be joint leader of the Challenge Cup, but consistency is going to be key in the final 5 rounds. And outside that top 5, you then have Sean Cranleigh-Swash in 6th. Steve Hughes, Christer Halsoy, Alistair Murray and Sam Derbyshire wrap up the top 10. Daniel Shillcock's in 11th based on result countback. And then we do have Darren Sharples ahead of Daniel Stasuk, with Brecht Berings and Stuart Reynolds rounding off the Challenge Cup top 15 standings. With that, ladies and gentlemen, that's about it for our standings, and it's now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the UK Sim Racing community, well, we do recommend that you head to our website, and that website is at uksimracing.co.uk. And well, our website has recently gone for a bit of renovation, and now integrated with the UK Sim Racing Discord and YouTube channel, as you see on screen. Our new website provides all the information you need for a quick and easy to navigate user interface. On the homepage, as you can see here, you can check out the latest announcements from the community. Meanwhile, you can also use the live streams and videos on demand section to catch up the most recent broadcasts. Alternatively, you can head to our partners page for our affiliates, and on Active Leagues, where you can catch up with all the information on the ongoing and upcoming series we run here at UK Sim Racing. And well, if you've not visited it yet, then why not today? Just head to our website at uksimracing.co.uk to potentially get yourself on the grid and go racing with us. There's never been a better time to do so here in 2025. But from that, if you don't want to go to our website, you can of course follow us on Twitter. That's at twitter.com/UK We can keep update all the latest announcements and all things UK Sim Racing. And with that, we'd like to take a moment to say a quick thank you to our title sponsor, the virtual racing school. VRS.racing is their website. Because if you're interested, established in 2016, VRS aims to help sim racers get faster through the provision of top-tier software and hardware, which draws upon the knowledge and experience of both real-life racing drivers and sim racing professionals. A VRS subscription, extremely popular with sim racers around the world, provides an intuitive solution from combining data analysis and coaching, which may be used by racers at all levels to take their racing to the highest level. Meanwhile, the VRS Direct Force Pro line wheel of wheelbases and pedals offers the cutting edge in sim racing hardware as used by more professional sim racers and real-life racing drivers than any other brand in the world, including Formula 1 sensation Oscar Piastri. So if you want to get faster, be sure to head to VRS.racing today to find out more. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to find out more about how the championship continues, well, brace yourselves, because in a week's time, round number 7 will see us go to the ever-loved and ever-infamous Interlagos circuit of the Autodromo José Carlos Pache in Brazil. It will be on Sunday, the 10th of August 2025, that our drivers will roar the way around the Sao Paulo circuit, but we'll bring you all the race in action as if it were live on Monday, the 11th of August. And it does seem as though the championship tables are taking a turn in our Elite, AM and Rookie championships, whereas in the pros, it seems to be Ruben Berings who holds sway, at least for today. But could it all change once again in Brazil in a week's time? We'll tune in then to find out. But until then, we've been UK Sim Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night.